Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Podcast Juice. My name is Michael Dean. As you can see, I have a special guest here today. This is going to be one of those shows. I know, like the Eric Leeds was one of those shows. This is going to be another one of those where he's a Prince fan. We're just going to sit back and just like listen and learn and just hopefully uncover some things. So if you got your tea or whatever it is, sit back, relax, let's have a good time. Joining me today is LiPuma. Laura, how are you?
I'm great, Michael. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming on. For people who don't know, just tell us a little bit of who you are, what you do, and how you're coming into, being on the podcast on Prince.
Well, okay, in a nutshell, I'll classify myself as I'm the last generation of album cover designers. So I was in that last generation, lucky enough to have spent the bulk of my career designing the wonderful vinyl, the 12 inches,
Wow.
And I was also of that generation to sadly see it all morph into what it's become. So my big dream was I'm one of those rare folks that all I want to do is album covers, and that girl had a dream, and that girl went out to LA, and lo and behold, it happened. Now there's a lot leading up to that, of course. Right. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, bad jobs, bad bosses, but wow. It happened. So I was hired at Warner Brothers when I was at the time 26 years old, and really started the career of my dreams. So that's how I got in. Warner Brothers was in my opinion, the most happening label in existence. So I not only got in with the best label, I thought, in the world. So that's how my career started in the record business.
All right. And I will say, I actually happen to have some of your work sitting back here on the wall.
Woohoo!
This one, we'll get into it later, but for Prince fans, this is super iconic. I remember walking into Tower Records.
Really?
Day and not, back then there wasn't an internet, so it would be kind of what you would see on MTV News or something. You'd hear about it in a magazine. And I would just go every Friday just to check and see what was new. And I remember seeing this, not expecting it, and I was like, "What? Me and my buddy was like, "What is that print? What?" Right. We immediately bought it and took it home. But we just look at this cover on the art and look, and Kat, friend of the show.
Oh my gosh!
It's like, and we'll get the typography, the font style.
Oh man, thank you, Michael. No, really.
Thank you. Suffice to say,
are you did you actually spend time in record stores? Like, do you remember going there for the fun of it? And you were definitely part of the vinyl generation.
Oh yeah. I'm probably a little older than I may look. I was definitely in like I said, Tower Records. That would be every Friday we would go.
Exactly.
Every day. Yeah. Then I would go to the mom and pops, searching through their crate, digging. Absolutely. The record store. I try to tell this to my kids now.
Man,
it's like, I don't know what the equivalent. I guess I told them, I said, how you guys get on the phones and are on social media, and just that's how we would go to the record store. It was like that was where you went. Music was such an important part of our life.
Man, it was central.
Yeah, the album art, obviously the music. It was all, you studied it. I knew that stuff through and through. So yeah, I'm a part of that generation.
Oh, okay, yeah. You do look young, but
I appreciate that. But then what we'll get into is to say you've worked on arguably Prince's most iconic bodies of work. I think you started with the 1999, a 12-inch for a 1999 album, and then Purple Rain,
exactly,
on all the way to Lovesexy, Pace the Park, and all that. So
Yes.
So she's that person. So now who we're
Yep.
talking to.
That's funny, Michael. Yes, that's me. And wow, it's what a ride.
Nice. So Laura, let's go back before we get to Warner Brothers, before we get to Prince. I'm sorry, you were out of
Cleveland,
Cleveland?
Ohio.
Cleveland.
Yeah.
Cleveland, Ohio.
Yep.
What
Born and raised.
born and raised. Tell us how music was so important to you to sort of start you on this. What was the group or the bands or artists that sort of like, okay, this is
Yeah.
where I want to go?
Yeah. It's again like basically I grew up in a large family. So I'm one of 7 kids, and I was more on the younger side. So
Mm.
I call, the experience that I had growing up as a kid is like secondhand smoke, because they're all the elders and you want to always be hanging out with the older ones. And of course, in my house, music was everything.
Mm.
So I had all this influence from the older siblings in my indoctrination or exposure to music. So I'm talking about my earliest memories is, my sister Diane was at that perfect age of Beatle mania to the max. All right.
Okay.
So she was obsessed. Okay, so I grew up like my first exposure to honestly like the passion and the power of music
Mhm.
was being exposed to the Beatles. Now imagine, I was what, 8 years old? And my biggest exposure to music at that point is the Beatles. So I remember watching my sister just go berserk, get every record, become the rabid fan, and so I was kind of like going along for the ride. And then as I got older, it just became part of our it was such an influence to have that kind of exposure at such a young age to something as brilliant as the Beatles. All right.
Mm.
Then imagine this. Okay, that's 8 years old. I'm coming into the Beatles. All right. Then imagine, in what was it, 1965, I was 10. So imagine, in comes James Brown.
Mm.
Are you kidding me? In comes Motown. So
Mhm.
so I've got like the Beatles in my brain. Exactly. Then you go, holy, what in the world? And because I lived in Cleveland, we were very lucky to get this radio station out of Detroit called
Oh.
CKLW. And I'm telling you, CKLW played primarily Motown. And we didn't have anything like that in Cleveland. It was mostly, pop and very white. And then, so as I'm getting a little bit older and starting to form my own taste, I got Motown. I got, I, the Four Tops, Temptations, Supremes, all of it. So,
Mm.
so that started to get in the mix. All right. So imagine that. And then shortly after that, it's mind blowing to think of it. Shortly after that, even in 65, you get like the Beach Boys are happening, and Rolling Stones are coming on the scene. Bob Dylan, the Animals, like all of that music is starting to come in as well. So like my soup of musical, like it's just getting tastier and tastier.
Yeah.
It's all like blending into this. So Stevie Wonder, Al Green, Marvin Gaye. Can you imagine? Like it's, honestly, Mike, I look back and I think, God, is it because I was, because that was my music? Is that why I think it was so fantastic? Maybe yes. But also, if you look at it objectively, look at those musical styles coming in.
Mhm.
So for me, I got it all. Like I got everything from, poetry to funk to James Brown. And so at an early age and all through my adolescence, it was all about the music. And that's what we did. Like you said, we lived at record stores. We would like wait for the next release when whoever that was. We would come home and, being in a large family, mom's busy. So it's not like she didn't have time to drive us here and drive us there. So our entertainment was, what's the new record? Let's put it on the stereo and let's get this, that just like summer after summer after summer.
During this time, so I'm understanding the music now. For me, it was just before my time.
Okay.
I'm born in '69, but
Oh,
those are all super iconic.
yeah.
All those artists growing up, I see as my parents have all of them, and I see all these faces. Not always able to connect the visual with what I was hearing. So it's weird. I knew all the songs. I just didn't know who the people were making them. But then when we start to realize, oh, my mom had that album, or this album was always in my house.
Yeah.
So you always identify, the album art is always such a strong thing. Like they were almost signposts. I was telling my son yesterday, he's 16. And I said, man, this cover of Superfly, we're listening to Curtis Mayfield. I said,
Oh,
the cover of Superfly, I didn't even know what that was as a kid, but every house, my mom had it, my dad had it, the uncles had it. I just knew the cover. I knew the little thing opened up, and the guy, I thought maybe he was another version of James Bond that I had not seen or something, the way that Ron O'Neal's on the cover. But it was just like, I remember that imagery. I'm bringing that up now because, and I'm going to remind myself when we talk about Purple Rain, I almost feel like, I don't know if it's osmosis, but I can see sort of some visual connections between the visuals of Superfly and Purple Rain, but we'll get to that later. We'll get back to my point. The question is, when did you start to get sort of the artistic bug from the music? Was there a point where are you looking at the covers and even thinking then, like, how did they do this, or is that not even in your mind? And when did it come into your mind that this could be something I could do?
Yeah, well, that's a good question because, I was always we were just so the cover and listening to the music was like hand in hand. So I never, everybody always just got into the cover art. If they had lyrics, we would be so. I loved it, but I never thought as a young kid, like, I want to grow up. This is what I want to do. That didn't enter my mind, but I was so cued in, like I would sneak into my brother's room and, he was a good 8 years older than me, or maybe 7. And so I'd go through his collection, and I remember seeing this one cover from King Crimson. It was from a band called King Crimson, and it was this bizarre illustration. And I was so taken aback by the illustration. I'm like, I'm gonna draw this. So I stuck it out of his room, and that was the first time that I took a cover and duplicated it. And I remember I put weeks and weeks into it. And I mean, I was always that like art nerd that I was always doing something art related, whether it was, finding rocks and painting rocks and, staring at clouds. Like, swear to God, half the time if we went on a road trip, which wasn't often, because that's a lot of kids in a station wagon, I would spend time. I'm not kidding you. I'd stare at the clouds and like, wow, now I see a face, and man, it's turning into a car. And I just had that weird. I was that weird kid,
Wow. Okay.
So I didn't get into, I was always doing art. I was always interested in art, taking classes, that just from as far back as I could remember. But, back in the day, I never dreamed I could make a career out of, I didn't even know what graphic design was. So that's a whole other story.
Okay. Talk to us about your favorites. I think you mentioned the Beatles. I don't know if you said that was your favorite thing. Was the Beatles did that become your group too, or?
I was so young. Like, who doesn't? Once you're onto the Beatles, you never. They're in your bloodstream. So
Okay.
yeah, they stuck with me through thick and thin. But as I was getting my own taste, it was more about Al Green, James Brown,
Oh, really? Okay.
Sly and the Family Stone, and coming in, of course, were like bands like, I mean, Jimi Hendrix. I was
Mm,
very young to love Jimi Hendrix, and I was obsessed with Jimi Hendrix.
wow.
So though it was really a combination of just the whole Motown scene, and then as of course, as I started to get older, the taste changed a little bit, but I guess you could say honestly, I always had, the funk was always there. Like I fell in love with James Brown at a young age.
Let me ask you this, since this is something I don't I don't get to hear people explain enough. How did you perceive Motown, James Brown? And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming things obviously back then are segregated. Well, I don't know if you were in an area where it was black and white together, or if you had a lot of contact with black people. But I'm always very curious, like how did people who were not black? I knew how you took to the music, but I was curious. What did you think of the people? Was it like, did you like, wow, this is how black people are, or you know what I mean? I don't know if that's a. I'm trying to ask that question, but I'm just curious. How did you take Motown? Besides, sonically, it's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, growing up in Cleveland, Cleveland is it's just by nature of the suburbs. I didn't have a whole lot of exposure to black culture in the suburbs,
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
but it was, you know, I guess because my family was always, I mean, there was just never in my young brain, it was never like, oh, there's them and there's us. Like it
Mhm.
was never that way for us. We just weren't raised that way.
Okay.
So when I started getting more exposure to, you know, meeting more black people, that honestly, it came really not until probably high school, because
Mhm.
I went to Catholic school. There weren't a whole lot of black kids where I went to school, and not until I transferred to the public school, because I got real tired of Catholic schools. Then that was my exposure to, there was definitely there was plenty of black kids to get to know, and then when Soul Train started, like the whole fashion end of soul,
Yeah, yeah.
I never really felt like, oh, there's like two separate cultures here, although there was two separate cultures.
Mm.
And so when I started to meet more friends and got more exposure, it was just I really never thought twice about it. Like, oh, now I understand what Soul Train's all. It just kind of all happened naturally.
Okay. Okay. Because that was a time where I mean, you're being exposed to, like you said, a whole other cultures or different styles, and everything was very regional because what songs were playing in this part of the country might not have been playing in that country. What dances you guys are doing here are different versus now. Today, it just seems like it's all
It's
kind of the
all
same.
exactly, exactly. But I
Uh,
don't know. I was just lucky enough. I guess just being in Cleveland, there was a lot more exposure, I suppose, to the and then the Motown sound and all those artists. We just loved them all. So there was a just totally open to, man. This is incredible. Listen to the sound, and you know
I dig
Cleveland,
it.
I think, had a lot to do with it, honestly. I don't, I assumed everybody had exposure, and that was not the case.
With that said, let's jump a little ahead. When do you see graphic design? When do you learn about that? And maybe that's something you want to get into.
Yeah. All right. So, I'm going through high school. I'm taking the art classes, and then okay, going to college. And back then, pretty much would just follow in the footsteps of the elders. Like everyone went to Ohio State. I visited my sister a few times. It didn't resonate. So I'm
Mm.
like, hey, if it's okay, I'd rather, like, maybe there's another school that's better for me. So I was lucky enough to get exposed to a school in Southern Ohio, Ohio University, and
Okay.
I fell in love. And my parents said, yeah, you could go there. It's, that's fine by us. So fast forward, I go to Ohio U, and I'm a freshman, and didn't know a soul, and I'm walking around, and I'm thinking, oh my God, it was the first time being away from the family, and
Yeah.
it was such a shock to the system, because I was always part of this. I hate, like, kind of a litter, like the always. So I get to Athens, and I'm thinking to myself, you got to realize this is like 1974. All right. And so I'm thinking, all right, here I am in college. I want to be able to, when I get out of here, I want to be able to, like, I want a job. I just didn't have in my young brain, like, I'm going to get married. I'm going to start a family. It just wasn't me for whatever reason. So I'm going through college. It's a freshman year. And I'm like, I'm taking all these fundamental art classes, and I was enjoying it, but I was like, what am I going to do with it? If I do major in art, what am I going to do with it? How am I going to support myself? It was a struggle, because I didn't find myself, like teacher material, not necessarily like, what am I going to do? Teach art? I didn't see it. So I thought, okay, it was getting towards the end of the freshman year. And, like, at that point, you have to kind of know going into sophomore year what your major is going to be.
Okay.
And I remember this one fateful day, I walk into the show. It was the senior graphic design show. Like, graphic design? And I'll tell you, Michael, I walk into this show, and it was one of those moments, it was like my entire future was, it was in a flash. I realized, oh my God, this is what I can do. Oh my God, this is amazing. And so that was the beginning of focus, and like, the answer. Like, I could take my art skills and apply it to something where, you could do commercial work, you could do book covers, you could do. So that was a moment. It was a life-changing moment.
And talk to us a little bit, because I imagine the principles of graphic design, as I assume, may be the same, or the fundamentals as they are today. But I would imagine the tools are drastically different today than what because I'm in the world of Photoshop, Illustrator, but that didn't exist back then.
Can you imagine? Okay, so everything's done by hand. Everything. And I remember when you're learning about typography, can you imagine? I don't even think if you could wrap your head around this. I remember there was these sheets of type, and they were called letraset, and they were rubbed down letters.
Okay.
And everything we did, that when we were learning about typography, we'd have to go buy these big sheets and physically rub down letter by letter any kind of typographical design you're doing. It was all like letter by letter by letter, or we'd have to draw the letter, or so it was all by hand. So you're talking, T-squares and large drawing tables, and X-Acto knives, cutting and figure. It was all by hand.
That sounds that's hard to imagine, but I mean, obviously humans are capable of doing excellent stuff, but we've sort of given a lot of that away. But I can't imagine. So I mean, like you're saying, you have to, like, the spacing has to be correct. All of that.
Exactly. Spacing, and then, when you're getting into small type, like, I remember doing this thing in college. We had to do, like, do a letterhead, Well, then, you're having at the bottom of the letterhead, you're talking tiny little, like, 8-point type, it's tiny. So it's like rubbing down the T and rubbing down making sure the spacing is, and then hoping it doesn't, like, chip or fall off. So it was, you had to have, a patience and skill. I mean, there was a lot of production skill in graphic design before computers.
That's why I wanted to touch on by bringing that up, because the skill set, the skill, the level of skill, the time you had to put in to how many you got wrong till you got it right and then got comfortable. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
that is almost a lost art, that the skill of that. And that when we get to who you're working with, Prince, he's another guy that puts so much skill and effort and time to get good. Or I
yeah.
can see how they sort of, yeah, okay, you have that level of determination in what you do. Now mine, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. I'll tell you that all that came in. I really put it to good use meeting a brilliant guy like Prince because he was so into the detail.
Mm,
And my training was so, I'm using Letraset and tiny little. I mean, I got it. I got it, and I was able to, interpret what he wanted and deliver like with
mhm.
fonts and sensibility about that. He was amazing that way.
Yeah, yeah. Just going back to your college days, I think it's always important when you have mentors and things of that nature. Were there any instructors, teachers that you remember
Oh,
that really made an impact on you?
oh my, yeah, absolutely. So the woman who ran the department, her name was Karen Nolf, and I believe she's still alive. But she was one of these people that were I'd never met anyone like her. She was like, you know, she smoked a lot, and she was like, she was so passionate about graphic design that
Mm,
it just was it was such an eye opener. So what she would do is she kind of took every graduating class, she would like hand pick her people, and she
mm,
would give them, kind of like projects outside of the realm of school. Like she would give them, she was amazing at combining people in town with the talent of her students. So
okay.
she would, she'd get friendly. She knew everyone in town. So she'd say, hey, let me know if you ever, when you need a new logo or so Karen she really took me under her wing, and I got to do some very special things thanks to her. And she was a major influence, major.
Wow. Okay. What was her name again?
Karen Nolf,
Karen.
Nuff, and just a real pistol. She was just a character, man.
She wasn't taking no ish, as we
Yeah,
like to say.
yeah,
You know what? That type of I call those our Obi-Wans, our Yodas. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Just that person that gonna pull your coat sometimes when you need it.
yeah.
Make sure you stay on target and push you. But that's how you get great. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Oh
gotta
yeah,
have that.
she was so good about that.
Nice, nice. Um, so college, we graduate, we make it through. How do you go from Cleveland
Yeah,
to one of, if not one of the most esteemed record companies of the time, Warner Brothers, a major label?
yeah,
Uh, how,
yeah,
how did you get in the door? And what year was this that you started?
yeah. I mean, it's interesting to look back at the timing because I graduated in 1977.
Okay.
So when I graduated, I go back to Cleveland, and I had to do a sit down with mom and dad and say, I don't see anything in Cleveland that I that I'd want to do in terms of graphic design. So my big dream is to go out to Los Angeles. I want to do album covers. They're like, oh my god,
I want to
that
go to Hollywood.
I want to go. So here's the thing, Michael. The reason that I was even able to consider this is because two big reasons. One, I had an uncle out there who was big time. He was a very successful and respected record producer
Oh, really?
named Tommy LiPuma. So anyone who's
I know
listening,
that name.
if you guys, if any of your listeners are jazz fans, they're gonna know my uncle. Okay.
Seen his name on many of your records. Yeah.
Yeah, Tommy LiPuma. He did the whole George Benson turning
Uh-huh.
vocals. George didn't want to do the vocals, and he did that Masquerade and this.
Okay.
He's on the map. He's so and he's a great guy. So they were like, well, maybe we won't be so scared because Uncle Tommy's out there, and Michael, I never thought, yeah, Tommy was definitely firing on all cylinders, and he was already totally established. But I never assumed that even though he was big time, I'm a graphic designer. You can't fake design. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I'm not going to get into a label just because hey Tommy LiPuma, I'm the niece. No, it's not going to work that way. So he was a big reason why for my parents it wasn't totally like terrifying to think, my 22-year-old is going to go out to LA. Like, are you kidding me?
Okay.
So that made it doable. And then I also had an aunt out there on my mother's side who was like the total opposite. The Italians, like the more the merrier. You want to sleep in our living room for 9 months. You can do that. So I really had backup. And so that's what it made that transition a lot less scary and a lot more doable in the beginning. So I get out there, I drove out. It's the proverbial, back up the Chevy Nova with my boyfriend at the time and a very good friend of his. We packed up my Chevy Nova and headed out of Cleveland, went straight to Los Angeles. It's your classic when you think about it. So we all get there, 1977. Now picture this, Michael. In 77, I mean, imagine this. It is like disco is about to explode. The first movie I saw in LA was Saturday Night Fever. Okay. So disco was about to explode. And then not much later, like maybe a year after, then you get punk. You get like X and the Sex Pistols. And it's so the music scene in LA it was so intense because it was all these different genres were coming in and they were exploding. So anyway, I get out there and I knew that I would have to put in, pay my dues. So I get out there and it took a while to get on my feet. I stayed with Tommy for a little bit. And then of course I headed over to Aunt Rose's house and luckily while I was there, I could go through the process of finding work and making, getting that first job so I can then go out there and get my own place, my own apartment. So, it took about a year. I stayed with my aunt and finally had put enough money together because I got a job, my first job in LA. And it was a little design firm called The Daily Planet. And I was so excited because one of their clients was ABC Records. And I was like, whoa, they have a record company they're affiliated with. How fun is that? They also did the LA Film Festival, which was a big deal. And when I was in college, I had done all the graphics for their international film festival. So I thought that was it was a wonderful thing. It was an exciting job. They had good clients. So Michael, I get in there. It was a small place. There were only a handful of designers. And, I was like, yay, I got a job. Now I can get an apartment. So I found an apartment very close to where I worked. And I was like, it's happening. Like I'm finally things coming together. So this one day, I think I had been there about a year. And I'm sitting there and there's a knock on the door. I open it. It's this guy in a suit. There were two guys in a suit. And I'm like, I thought at first that they had the wrong place, honestly, because this was like, Art Central and a lot of art types coming and going. Yeah. And they were like, is so-and-so here? And so-and-so they were asking for was the owner, my boss. And I'm like, oh yeah, come on in. I'll show you where his office is. So I walk the guys to the back. I come out, get back in my drawing table. And all of a sudden, I'd say 5 minutes later, if that, these two guys in suits are escorting my boss with his hands in cuffs,
Whoa.
cuffed, and walking him out the door. And he'd been arrested for two things. One, tax evasion. The second, cocaine.
Damn.
So Michael, he was dealing cocaine out the back.
Oh Lord.
So, it's like I
Sound like a movie or something.
I'll never forget it, because who would ever think, that's going to be like, what? Are you kidding? My boss was just
Right.
arrested. What am I supposed to do now?
Right.
So anyway, I was in a panic, and I thought, oh my God, it was. So I remember thinking, what am I going to do now? And, you just start to, I thought, well, I'm going to have to just look into freelance, see what I could find. And I did get a big break in that, Uncle Tommy, because he was so big, he had been with Warner Brothers and decided, he went over to A&M to start a jazz, like a label within a label for A&M Records. And so he needed a logo. Now, of course, this is all through A&M, so this was big time, right? Well, he needed a logo for Horizon Records, but honestly, he was so busy and wrapped up in his world. It was his wife, my Aunt Jill, said, "Did you ask Laura? Maybe she could help you with a logo." So by the time he asked me, I had 24 hours to put something together, because it had already been arranged. All these other designers had been contacted, and the big presentation was going to be the very next day. So I remember, Michael, I'm like, oh my God, I have 24 hours to come up with this logo. So I didn't even have a drawing table. So I went to a friend's house. I borrowed his drawing table, and I pulled an all-nighter, which you can do when you're in your 20s, and be okay the next day. So overnight, I came up with, as the best I can do. And the art director, not my uncle, but really the art director, is the one that picked it. And then, of course, Tommy had to approve, and he picked mine. So that was a big break for me, because it was a big, it was a label. It was a label. So I got to do the logo for Horizon Records, and that was very exciting.
Wow. So that sounds like that was the moment where things put you on this other track. And I love how you had 24 hours to do it, make or break. You didn't have your own table. Okay, I'm going, where's the table? Whatever I got to do, any means necessary. I love
it. It really was. It was what it is like from a movie, because I was like, oh my God, I have 24 hours to do this. And that's what you do. You just rise to the occasion.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Going from seeing your boss escorted out, dealing coke, not paying taxes. Was that the last day of you working there? Or was it soon?
God, in fact, I'm not sure if one of them came back in to say, "Hey guys, we're shutting this down. You can all go home." I don't even. My mind blocked out what happened after that, because I was in such shock.
Yeah.
I do remember getting into my little Volkswagen and going, like, practically crying all the way to the beach to visit a friend of mine that had just moved to Venice. So
man.
Yeah.
So and it was Horizon Records? Is that what it was called?
Horizon Records, yeah.
What was that like when you saw whatever it was, the first thing that they did, and you saw your logo? You remember that moment when you actually saw it, out there for real?
Oh my God, Michael! Actually, Michael, if we could can I off the record here? Here it is.
Nice.
Okay.
Now let me ask you about this. How did you create this?
Okay, well, I did. This is airbrush, and did you ever? Are we like on or off camera or what? I mean, this is.
Oh, we're on. We're good.
Okay, so you can. All right, so Michael, this is airbrush, and what I did originally when I had that 24 hours to be thinking about the logo itself, I came up with those discs, those 3 discs, and then the slanted, those panels. Like, that's all I had to begin with. That was it. And so from there, you had to apply that symbol to, things like this was, in the center of the vinyl, so everything
Okay.
an application, and then like you had to make it work within all kinds of formats. So
Mhm.
that's when I had created. I knew those discs were going to be airbrushed, which is. Did
Mm.
you ever see an airbrush?
I
It's
know what an airbrush is. I've never used them, but yeah, I'm familiar.
yeah, yeah. And you put the ink in the little side, and
Mhm.
it creates these beautiful transitions from dark to light. You can blend colors. It was very it was kind of hard to use because the spray had to be even, and
Right.
so I'm doing all this by hand, and that was the result, which if you mess up a little bit, you just have to start from scratch and do it all
Right.
over again you know
Remind me too. I have a little background in early print stuff. Was this at a back in the time where you had to get this? It's like a four color films or something like. I can't remember when
yeah
you would go to get it to press. Like I can't trying to remember. How do you did this by hand? Is the next step then it's photographed?
yeah so what happens, well, back in the day, with any kind of four color, whether it's a photo, an illustration, whatever it is, it goes to there were these houses that would create four layers of film,
Yes, that's right.
and that was a huge business. They would create film from artwork, break it down for printing, and
Mm,
then they do a press proof. You'd have to approve the press proof, and you'd have to, like, oh, there's too much red, or there's not enough blue, or you have to, like, fine tune the film broken down into the four levels of color, and then that film goes to the printer, and they put it on big presses, and each run is those different colors. You got yellow, magenta, cyan, and yellow.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
from that, it was just a whole nother deal.
Wow. So this was the logo right here, Horizon.
That was a logo. Yeah,
Wow. Let me just jump.
yeah.
Oh,
And
so were these the
okay, so this was they thought, hey, this is a new label. Let's hire a guy that does these, really, like, this guy had this technique of making, it was like a hand print that he did, and I forget how he actually created this technique, but it was his own. So they hired him to do X amount of, it was a limited run. I don't know how many they
Mm,
printed, but they just did it for, like, record executives, and hey, we're gonna gift this to you. So that was a lot of fun because I was asked to sign them, and it was just one of those moments where it just felt like, wow, it was
yeah.
the first time. It was like, wow, okay, I'm honored that this is I'm here signing special prints that are going to hang in executive offices. And again, this is an example of, okay, it's a letterhead, business card, envelope. All this had to be done by hand, different formats. You could see the applications are different, from the envelope to the letterhead to the business card.
Mhm.
you know
What they call branding today, everything has to be
exactly,
it's
exactly.
almost such a lost art of the letterhead and the
Yes.
business card. Like,
Oh,
that
I
was such a big
know.
thing back in the day, like, you don't really see that too much, at least I don't see it.
Oh, it's rare. People, like, even business cards, people don't even
Yeah,
do it anymore. Yeah, it is kind of a lost art, and there were some, that was a big fun part of graphic design.
absolutely. Um, so getting to do the Horizon, and does that get you, so how do you get to from that to Warner Brothers?
Okay.
Let's jump to
So at that point, Michael, I thought, okay, that awarded me some pretty good money for me at the time. I'm like, oh my God, so it took the pressure off. So
mm,
I started to just look into, okay, just do more freelance. You can develop freelance, and one thing led to the next. Freelance, it's a challenge because it's unknown. You can't, it's not for the weak of heart. Freelance is. So I was trying to get as much business as I could, and lo and behold, and this was another great moment in my career. I met through a friend this person who was an editor, and she was working for this guy that he wasn't a publisher, but what he did is he would think of good like coffee table book ideas, and then he would do mock-ups, and he would present these mock-ups to big publishers like Viking Press, all the big guys.
Okay.
And so she said, well, he's looking for someone to do these mock-ups. And I was like, oh my God, that just sounds incredible. So I was lucky enough at that point of my career where I didn't have to do that many, like, the kind of jobs where you think, oh my God, you got to pay the rent. And I didn't have to suffer for too long in that arena because this gig came up and he was called Rosebud Books. And I'll tell you, Michael, that it was the perfect job for me because it was book covers. So it was kind of like, that's almost as cool as an album cover.
Yeah.
And dealing with really cool photography, like high end, all kinds of things from architecture to the Hearst Castle. And so I got lucky because it was a steady gig. It wasn't like, oh, you're working as a W-2 and here's your set. It was still freelance, but I was on what do they say? I was part of his steady crew, and I didn't have to like keep hustling for other work. I was able to like settle in. Here I was on retainer. That's the word I was looking for.
Okay.
Yeah. So that went on for a couple of years, and it was a great experience. He, of course, he was kind of a shady character, also, as it turned out. And, and Michael, I'm not kidding you. All of a sudden, he had to get out of town.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. A little technical thing. Now, you had mentioned the books that you did with Rosebud, and we want to bring those up so we can see those as well. That'd be awesome. There we go.
Yeah. So, it was really fun because I did like the one, The Architecture of Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. That photographer this guy was like one of the best in the business. Julia Schulman was, very, very reputable architectural photographer. So I was dealing with like 8x10 transparency originals of this guy. So it was just, he came up with a lot of good ideas. The Garden of Earthly Delights. So I'll tell you that was a really fun period of, just being able to relax. I had a gig and it was just fun. And again, Michael, all this was done by hand. So I would lay out like 150 or 180 page book by hand. So it was
hard to imagine. Yeah.
I look back and it's like, it was difficult. I mean, it's laying out all these layouts by hand, typesetting, making sure everything fit. Mm-hmm. It was quite the challenge.
How big would like the architecture of Los Angeles, when you're doing it by hand? I mean, what size are we dealing with in the real world in terms of the actual pieces?
They weren't that huge. They were like maybe like 9x12. Some of them were smaller, so that they weren't massive books, but still, I'd say in that range.
Wow, this is awesome. So Rosebud, and we're making our way to old WB.
Yes. So when my boss said, "Hey guys, I'm out of here. Good luck with your lives," and he just split. Here I was again, like, oh my gosh, suddenly I don't have a job. So I thought, okay, now's the time. I've got some experience under my belt, and I will backtrack for a second by saying, when I first got to LA, my uncle said, hey babe, I'm happy to get you into the labels. happy to do it. And I thought, well, Tommy, that's really nice. Yeah, I'll of course I'll go. But I knew that I was too green. So at first I did go, saw all the labels in town with my portfolio, and they were very nice, but basically said, kid, we see potential, but you need some experience. So here we are now, 1982, and I've got some book covers and some logos, and I'm like, okay, I think I could go for it again and hit the labels. So instead of calling Uncle Tommy, which I did not do, I was like, okay, I'm going to make some cold calls. And I thought, all right, so what label do I want to work for most? Start there. And it was Warner Brothers. So here we go, Michael. It's a cold call. I didn't go through Tommy. I called the art director at the time, and I was stunned that he answered the phone. Like, he got on the line and he's like, how can I help you? And I introduced myself, and he said, yeah, come on in. I always look at portfolios. And so I go in, I meet with this guy, nicest guy you can imagine, just low key, totally comfortable with him. And he loves my work. And he said, hey, would you, he gave me a freelance job. So right out of the gate, I do a freelance job.
Remember what that was?
Yeah, it was a logo for a jazz band called the Yellow Jackets. This is way back in the day. So I do this logo, and I come back, and he really liked it, and he gave me another job. I forget what it was, the second one. So I come back with that. He really liked it, and that's when he said, and here's what, life is so funny, because the timing was unbelievable, because at that moment there were only 4 people in that art department. That's a small department. And he said, Laura, this doesn't happen often, but one of our art directors is leaving. She's moving to San Francisco. So we're going to have an opening. He said, I would like you to, I'd like to see if it works, to get you in here, but you're going to have to interview with several other people. And so, Michael, I remember thinking, I just cannot believe what's happening, because it's rare that anyone, you don't leave an in-house art department. That's like the cream of the crop kind of job. So it was really remarkable timing. And I interviewed his bosses, and long story short, I got hired. And that was 1982. And I was like, oh my, I couldn't, that was it. Like, to me, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And yeah, that's how it all got started.
So 1982, Warner Brothers. How old were you at this time?
So at the time, let's see, I was more than 55. What was I? 27. 27.
So 27-year-old Laura gets this job, which could be like a dream job.
Yeah.
Like, what was going on aside of the, just like in your regular life? Was this like, I made it, I'm making, so you got making good money, got a place, you live in LA, I take it, right?
Yeah, I lived right in the heart of, it's called the Fairfax area, which is very close to Hollywood. It's close to West LA. And it's funny, Michael, because, back then it was, as exciting as it's not like, I'm making all this bread, and I lived in such a modest, it was a little single apartment in an old stucco style building. I had a Murphy bed that my bed was pulled out of the wall.
Wow. Yeah.
It was a mattress. Like, you open a big door and you pull down a mattress. I swear to God, that's where I was living. So, but I was so excited, because to me, I didn't care about the money. I cared about the stability and the fact that, oh my God, this is happening. And I thought, okay, now I could dig in. And give this all I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What artists were like the coveted? Like what I don't even know if that was a thing that was going on. Was there a thing like these type of artists could only work with, did you have to work your way to get to work with some of these bigger?
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, being new, there's a whole lot of things that like once you're established, I was getting all the stuff as the new person in the art department that nobody wanted. You know,
Okay.
and believe me, Michael, there's quite a bit of that. There is, like, for example, all the country covers. Nobody wanted to do country covers in 1982. And so I would get a lot of those, like Crystal Gale Christmas and just, we had a Nashville division, but they didn't have an art department. So all of the country covers went through the main office.
Mm.
So that's why for me in the very beginning, I was happy to, I didn't care. I would do anything. I knew I had to pay my dues. But I was like, for me, my biggest thrill was to be at the label that had Prince. Okay. So for me, I was always such a big Prince fan. And I was by far the biggest Prince fan in that art department. God, hands down.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. So I don't know how it turned out where when 1999 was, it did very well. Like that, I think that was Prince's 5th album, if I'm not mistaken. And he had obviously had several hits off of 1999.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow the first thing I got to do was that single. Here we go.
Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Now, Michael, you have to understand this was all this artwork was already done. Like the photo had been done. Obviously, that was the cover. Mm-hmm. I think Prince did all that doodling. I'm pretty sure that was him. Up to that point, he didn't really have anyone in-house that he was working with.
Okay.
So they said, hey, what would you? So the first thing I did was this. It was a 12-inch, and I just used, whatever elements existed and put this together. And I remember thinking, this is incredible. I'm doing like, he was my favorite artist on the label. So I was just over the moon. And I think they gave me that opportunity because they knew I was such a fan.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So, well, at this point, do you even, and even aside from Prince, do you even meet the artists when you do this stuff, work for them, or do you just sort of get handed direction, or how does that work?
Yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes, like when you're that young and new, oftentimes you would just do the design. So let's say my boss Simon, who's the guy that hired me, mm-hmm. Let's say he did a photo session of an artist, but he was too busy to finish the package. He would just hand it over to the designer, someone in my position, and say, hey, here's the photo session. You do the rest. So, you're going through a photo session. You're not meeting the artist at that point. You're just taking material that's already been done with the artist, and you're taking it to completion. You're taking it to the design, and then approval, and then, to finish the press.
Okay. Got it. So you get to do, let's pretend we're married. That comes out. How does it transition from, okay, you got to work on the single for this, the next project he's going to do, which is going to be a movie thing and all that. How did that happen for you? How'd you get into that?
Okay. This is the movie moment. Okay. So I kid you not. So, all right, this one fateful day, I'm sitting there in the art department, and it was very odd because, me being an Italian, it's like lunch, I'm all about food. When I get hungry, it's like, I got to have my lunch. All right. So by some miracle, I don't know, everyone decided to go to lunch. And I don't know, maybe they invited me, maybe they didn't, but I was probably working on a deadline. And I'm like, hey, you guys know, I got to finish this before I have lunch. So Michael, everybody leaves. Everybody leaves. I'm the only one in the art department. Okay. So I'm sitting there doing whatever deadline I was working on. And my boss at the time, not Simon, but the guy ahead of him, above him, this creative director, he comes running into the art room. And he's like looking around, like you know, and he's like in a panic. And he goes, Laura, where is everybody? And I said, everyone's out to lunch. And he's like, you could tell he was stressing. And he goes, oh my God. He goes, well, you got to drop what you're doing. I'm going to have to send you to meet with Prince. Like his manager called and someone's got to get over there. He's shooting a video. Go now. So it was like, what? So, Michael, he leaves the room and I'm like, you know, careful what you wish for, because all of a sudden I'm having to like drop what I'm doing and go meet with. I was like, I remember feeling, I was so excited, but terrified. I was absolutely terrified. I wasn't prepared. So it was get in your car. He doesn't have much time. Get to the soundstage at A&M Records. So I remember being on the freeway. It was, you know, it's always crowded on those LA freeways. I'm heading to Hollywood from Burbank. And it's like, I just couldn't believe what was happening. So I thought, okay, Laura, you know, this is your moment. Like you're about to meet Prince. So I remember going into, it was A&M, and I park at A&M, and it was a sound stage on at A&M Records. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking into the sound stage, Michael, and it was very quiet. So they were shooting the video for When Doves Cry.
Wow.
Okay. They were shooting that video. All right. So
you were there.
And I'm telling you, I had never heard, no one had ever heard that song. I didn't know the song. I didn't know anything about, no one had ever heard anything off of Purple Rain. And so I remember walking in and it was quiet. So they were between takes. And I'll never forget, this is really strange because I didn't know where I was going and no one was there to meet me. And so I remember kind of like trying to find someone and looking around. And I look over and there's this room that has a bunch of flowers on the floor, you know, just a bunch of scattered flowers. I'm like,
interesting.
Oh my God. I wonder what all those flowers are doing on the floor. And then sure enough, shortly after that, his manager comes out. And, you know, this guy, his name was, there were three guys that were his managers. And this guy was Steve Farnoli. And he comes out, he goes, hey, thanks for coming. You know, we're shooting the first video off this record. This is a new Prince album called Purple Rain. So that's I'm like, Purple Rain, okay. And he goes, look, you know, Prince wanted to have an art meeting, but we're kind of running tight. He doesn't have much time. So just sit tight. You know, we'll see how much time. Basically, he was saying, we'll see how much time he can give you. You know, gotcha. I remember sitting in some room. I wasn't in the main room. And and they start running through When Doves Cry again. Like the audio comes on. And Michael, I'm sitting there going, oh my God, listen to this song. And so can you imagine? Because I could hear it. I mean, I wasn't in the room, but the guitar opening. And I'm like, oh my God, is this good? And they were playing it over and over again. And then, you know, stop and start. And then finally, you know, I don't know how much time went by, maybe 20 minutes. So finally everything stops and Steve comes into the room again. And he goes, okay, Laura, I think Prince has a few minutes. You know, he'll be in here shortly. I'm like sitting in this room going, oh my God. So Michael, can you imagine? I hear this like Prince always wore these boots, like 2-inch heel boots. And I hear this click, 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 click. I'll never forget it. And so in walks Prince. And if you can put up, I've got a visual for you. Okay. Because I want to show you what he was wearing. All right.
Let me make sure I got it here.
So it might be after this slide. Okay. It's after that. Okay, go back.
So
Okay.
this, oh wow,
Yes.
it's so
Okay.
iconic right here.
All right. So that's what Prince was wearing because that's what he wore at the end of the video when Dove's crying. So
Yeah.
can you imagine? He walks into that suit without the hat, and he's look at the purple boots, and I'm like, oh my god. So I stand up, and we're like the same size, okay? Like I'm barely 5'2", all right? And Michael, I'm standing there meeting Prince in that outfit, and all he says to me like is he looks at me and he holds out his hand and he goes, "Hi, I'm Prince." And he holds out his in that voice that is very like never changes, and he talks very soft and very low. "Hi, I'm Prince." And he holds out his hand, and I said, "Oh, hello." I shake his hand and I say my name. I think I don't even remember. And so he said he thanked me for coming, and he said, "I'm about to put out this album, Purple Rain. I wanted you to see this backdrop that we are using right now. I want this to be on my dust sleeve." So I go, we go out and see that room. That was that painting in the background. He wanted that to be on the dust sleeve, and basically says, and thank you for coming. I'll have more notes for you as we get further down the road. And that was the end of the meeting. That was it. I think he just wanted to. I don't know. Like there wasn't much more established at that first meeting. So I get back to the office, and they're like, how'd the meeting go? And I'm like, honestly, we didn't really discuss too much other than, I'm doing it's a movie. It's going to be a movie, and it's called Purple Rain. And he showed me what's going to be the dust sleeve, and thanked me. And that was about it. I mean, there wasn't much more happening other than, nice to meet you. And I wanted you to see this backdrop for the dust sleeve. So that was the extent of the meeting.
And this is on the set of the When Doves Cry video shoot.
Yes.
You hear, like you said, no one had heard this music outside of probably the camp there, and hearing this for the first time. And you said you were like in another room, but you could hear the playback, I guess.
Yeah, the room was right off. See that studio right there where they shot the end of it was right off this room. So I wasn't like in that room, but it was like right next to the room. And can you imagine, like, that guitar intro?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, and the thing is, because it was a video, they do it over and over and over again because it's a video.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just blown away by that experience of hearing that for the first time. I'll never forget it.
Wow. There's a lot of things I want to ask here. First, the fact that you saw him with this outfit in real life in real time is
in real time.
God, that's crazy. This poster that we're looking, this picture became a poster, I believe, that was inside the vinyl album. There's always a curious thing, as a kid, I had this poster. We all had this up on our wall. Looking at this, I always wanted to know if you can answer this. So Dr. Fink there on the stairs, you can see through his body. I don't know if you ever noticed. I don't know if you can answer the question. Was this an overlay or something? Like why can you see the stairs inside of him? Like, you see what I'm saying?
You know what, Michael? I've got mine right here. I'm gonna pull out the actual. Let me see if I could. That's interesting.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna make a quick adjustment over here. But yeah, that's always wondered about.
Oh, you know what, Michael? That is interesting. Okay, you know what? They did splice him in.
Is that what that is? Okay.
Yeah, he must be spliced in, which I don't.
Even actually on Prince's elbow, you can kind of see through it a little bit and see the impression of Bobby Z.
Yeah, no, you're right. I bet this was probably a composite. Of course, back in the day, when you're working on something like this, I was just handed this transparency. So I
Okay.
was not involved in like putting this together. It was just, here you go. This is going to be the poster.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes a lot of sense now that you say that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Um, if we can jump right here, this beautiful handwriting that Prince had,
Yeah.
uh,
Oh my
which is just a piece of art unto itself. And now, is this? Can you explain what we're looking at here? Is this his
Yeah.
notes to you?
Yeah. So after meeting Prince, he had after we met, I don't know how much time went by, not much, but I got a package, maybe a few days after that meeting of the artwork that, because he did say, he goes, uh this is going to be a movie and the cover is going to be the poster from the movie. So I knew I was going to be doing a front cover. It was going to be supplied.
Okay.
So in that, when that first package came over, it had a large transparency of the Purple Rain, the actual movie poster,
Mhm.
just the photo. And in that was that note, because he was so busy, and I think he had so much going on. I think it was all in, like, when I got that package from management, that was it for the entire for Purple Rain. So
Mm.
this note, which is fascinating, because you could see, he's talking about the back cover, and
Mhm.
he spelled out to me, this is exactly how I want it to be. And that was really the only specific direction I'd received up until that point.
Wow. I got to ask you this. I should ask at the top. The Purple Rain logo, as I call it, the actual word Purple Rain, is that something? Did you create that?
No, that was created via the movie company
Okay.
for the movie.
Okay.
And they had hired, I think it was this guy Vigon, the Vigon brothers. I believe they had done it, but they were hired by Warner Pictures to put that out with the film.
I see. I see. The different fonts for each song title, is that you're working?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so he did say, now I don't, honestly, I don't know if he may have said in that meeting, I was so altered when I first met him. I really wish I had a more specific memory of what we covered at that meeting, because I was pretty altered. But I believe at that time he specifically said, I want every song title to have be in a different typeface. I
Mm,
think I think he did specify that. So what I had to do was come up with, every single song, of course, had to have a different font, and he had to approve it. So that's how involved he was. Like,
mm.
I came up with these fonts, and he liked all of them. So that was a home run. He went for all of those, including even this "Dig If You Will." That's obviously also a font,
Mhm.
and he loved it. So he loved that right out of the gate.
Are you coming up with these fonts just off of the titles he gave you, or had you heard the music?
Yeah, that's a good question. At that point, I don't think I'd even heard the music yet, because I don't think the album was totally done. They first were, I don't know if they did it at the same time, but honestly, I don't think I had heard the music yet.
Okay.
So it was strictly from the song title, and just trying to come up with fonts that you could read, obviously, because it was hard to read anything over the flowers. And,
Mm.
just kind of having fun and picking out fonts I thought he would like.
Wow. So this particular image we're looking at now, this whole layout, this is your work in terms of where everything is positioned and all of the coloring, everything?
Oh yeah. And getting back to the flowers, So, when I was told, look, you're going to do this based on a movie poster, it's like, well, look, that's the last thing a designer wants to hear. Cause okay, yeah, this is, so, imagine, I'm looking at the movie poster and it's like, okay, well, it's a vertical. You got to make it a square. I can't blow it up so it's a full bleed. So that's when I thought, you know what, I'll get some flowers photographed and we'll use this floral border, So me going there and seeing that room with the flowers on the floor, I'm really glad that happened because that was a direct connection to I don't want to just put colors next to this. That would be too boring. So that's when I had the flower shot. And then in addition to the florals, I thought, I need other things to, I'm going to have to do ads. I need other things besides this poster. So I took, back in the day, it was a magnifying glass. They were called loupes. It was this, like, you would look through a loupe and it would magnify slides that you were looking at.
Okay.
Or if you wanted to see something in a transparency up close, you would look through this loupe. And so I'm looking through I've got the Purple Rain artwork on the light table because it was a large 8x10 transparency, and I'm looking for things to pull visually, and I see the symbol, and I'm like, I thought that is now Michael, it's 1984, and I thought that is the coolest thing to have, male female combined. That was just, I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I'm going to take that symbol and blow it up and use it as a graphic. And so as you can see on that is a sticker on the right side that was put on the Purple Rain cover. And what I did is I took them, they were called China markers, and I just made the symbol big and kind of rough looking. And that's what I started to use as an additional graphic element. And he never said, oh man, I love this. But if Prince approved it, he loved it. So I like took the chance, blew it up, and he apparently loved it because I used it for many other things during that whole Purple Rain release.
Let me give you your props for one, for those flowers.
well, Michael, here's the thing. I got to tell you something. Okay, I would love to know. Like, I'm assuming Prince came up with that. Like, let's do male, female combine and combine the symbols. But I don't know how it got. I mean, he obviously said, I want it on my motorcycle and make sure that happens. But if you look at the movie poster, if I hadn't looked with a fine-tooth comb, I don't know if I'd ever have seen. And I just loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
He was always so ahead.
Oh my
things, it's ridiculous.
So really, I was so excited to see that, and I took out my orange marker and boom, that was the symbol. Sort of it
becomes a whole other thing later. It's almost identify Prince. I mean, he gave his identity up to be that, right? Like that was.
Oh, Michael, who would have ever? I would have never thought in a zillion years that he'd become the symbol.
Right. But I just wanted to, I really want to give you, props and respect because this cover, the flowers on the side like that, and that is such a visual that unidentified is Prince. It was so brilliant. It's such a part of again, I was I was like 15, 16, I think. Just seeing that, I know exactly what this is. Looking at this now and hearing you describe it, and it has, with the borders and stuff.
Yeah.
Now I can look at one of the other, and we'll get to it. One of your other pieces of art that I think is just dope, for very simply, is just the yellow border on the Madhouse thing. that I can see the aesthetic of this kind of matching that now. I can see that the same person had to have worked on this. So this is dope. Like, I love this.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that you have the eye to, to notice that. Take
Oh,
note.
absolutely. I studied this stuff, but this is, I always wonder, like, who came up with the flower? It is so great. It is such a part of that movie. It is such a part of the visual of this album of Prince. Like, it's incredible. Yeah. And it's funny because I don't know if you would have thought back then what this would have turned into being. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh my God.
how much. And that's what sometimes artists, people can say, yeah, this is great, and they tell you they like something. But to hear, like, I'm telling you, I'm not speaking for a lot of fans out there. These albums they went on the wall. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it would inspire us to do our own sort of creative endeavors. And the same way when you were mentioned earlier, when you would just copy or trace or make your own versions of it, that was the same way we would do with stuff like this. You know, it would spawn our ideas to do things. So, salute to you for that. That's
Oh,
cool.
I love that. I love hearing that.
Yeah, incredible. Like this. I wanted to ask you about this. The picture here, in my mind, I feel like this was a picture that was used in the movie, in that video of When Doves Cry, the one with the lake here.
Well, you know what, Michael, back in the day, again, because this is all done by hand, Prince had he was so involved in every aspect, especially in the beginning.
Mhm.
He wanted a still from the movie of Lake Winnetonka. And so I'm told I'm sent this still, which, back then they didn't know how to pull decent quality stills from a movie. And so I'm looking at this thing and I'm horrified. Like, I'll give you the inside scoop. I'm like, this is a freaking nightmare for a designer, because how am I gonna, you're not gonna be able to read anything off this image. But this is what Prince wanted. And he wanted, he ins I couldn't even find a font that was legible on this thing. So I did the best I could, and I just, to this day, I look at this dust sleeve, I'm like, oh my God, to me, it was impossible to deal with, the reflection of the water, the darks and the lights. So I did the best I could, and that's what he wanted. Now, when they did the next printing, I don't know how many they pressed initially, because who knew it was going to blow up. But when they went into a second printing of Purple Rain, that was switched.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Michael, I went through the Purple Rain LPs that I kept, and I don't have the second version of that dust sleeve where you can actually see and read the lyrics.
Was the picture just pulled out, or what was in its place?
Replaced. I used something else, and
I remember that.
it's crazy to say that I don't even remember. I don't remember what I replaced it with.
Huh.
But it's funny because they realized, ooh, she's right. You really can't, this is really hard to read. So that's why he agreed. Okay, we could switch this out. And I'm going to have to do some research to figure out what I replaced it with.
I'm sure somebody in the comments is going to post that picture.
Oh, I hope so.
I'm sure it's out there.
I hope so, because it's driving me crazy now. I can't remember.
Wow. Well, I would say, again, is it hard to read? But it just added to the allure of the whole thing to me. Like,
exactly.
It's like, oh, I still got to read it and listen. So I thought nothing of it. I just thought, man, this is brilliant. Like,
that's so funny, and I'm sure that was the case for a lot of fans.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So here we go. Now this is interesting for the fans out there. Okay. So, here it is back in the day. There's no Photoshop. There's no nothing. You've got straight up photography. That's all you've got. So I thought, I need Purple Rain. Where am I going to get Purple Rain? So, Michael, I called this photographer the thing about LA, okay, you can imagine Los Angeles is so ripe with talent. There was so much damn talent out there. Dear Lord, the photographer, everyone, illustrators, it was a mecca of, it was just creative juice to the max. So I called this guy up who did, I don't even know how, he did a lot of still lifes. And I said, look, I know this sounds so abstract and obscure, but I need literally a shot of purple rain. Literally, I need rain that's purple. Okay. I don't care how you do it, just do it. So he goes, what do you mean exactly? I said, just what I said. I need purple rain. So do it. It's so Michael, this guy comes up with, literally, I thought it was brilliant. I don't, to be honest, I don't know how he did it. I didn't go to the photo.
Really?
I didn't care. It's like, I don't have time to come over to your studio and help you do the purple rain, but get it done. And he delivered. This guy delivered. So I then had purple rain to use and my symbol, and I started to use these as elements for like, obviously this one was for the 45, Let's Go Crazy. And then I remember using purple rain for like teaser ads in Billboard magazine. Like we did this one where it's just purple rain on the back cover. That was it. And then the next one was like, it was like a teaser campaign. That's when like print advertising was really powerful and really mattered. And so it was fun. I mean, considering like, look, this thing started to just go nuts, no pun intended. It did go crazy. Like, Let's Go Crazy. Purple Rain went crazy. So it was like pulling at whatever visuals we could get. Oh, here we go. That's the same shot. It's again the Purple Rain. And that disc was, that was a very limited run of a very cool, I think that was just that was the 45 of.
It's Purple Rain and God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, the picture disc era. I remember that.
The picture disc. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
When this album, let me ask you this, I guess, what is it like to finalize the album art? Is it like you present everything and then this Prince and his management finally say, okay, this is a go, and then it's like a go to press? Like, how does that all work at the end of it?
Okay, with Prince, every single package I worked on was a different process.
Oh, okay.
That whole like finalizing, approving, getting the green light, every single one had a different process with Prince because he was always on the road or always, busy being a genius. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, depending on one of the 10,000 things he had going on, process was different. But I'll never forget, at some point, this is something your viewers are going to get a kick out of. And I forgot to mention this. At some point, and I believe it was probably Purple Rain, because we're talking, he was so involved in every single aspect of that release. When I was coming up with the different picking fonts for the different songs, and I kid you not, your viewers, this is a great story. So I had all these different fonts picked out, and back in the day, the books that we used to look at typography were big. They were like big, oversized books. And you go through like maybe there were 2 fonts per page. It showed all the different letters, and you'd go through these. They were like, weighed a ton. They were weighty big books. So I had to mark in these books, Prince was coming in for a meeting because he wanted, and I believe it was for the Purple Rain release, he wanted to see the fonts for the song titles that I was going to be using. So I borrowed my boss's office because, at the time, he's not going to be like prancing through the art room with everybody else. So I needed some privacy. So I'll never forget this. He comes in. I don't know who he was with at the time. It might have been one of the managers, and maybe, his bodyguard was there. Maybe it was a couple people.
Okay.
And we're in this, like, this is the second time I'm seeing him, and he's like actually, there in the flesh. And so he was I have the type books, and I'm showing him like, okay, for Let's Go Crazy, I thought I would use this one. And so he would look at it, and he decided, and I don't know, I'm looking back at this, and it's funny for me to think about this now. He never spoke a word in that meeting, did not speak a word. So all he would do is point. And I remember realizing, like, halfway through the meeting, or not halfway, like this dude's not going to talk. Like, he's not going to talk right now. So, I'm trying to okay, no talk. So he proceeded to point, like, if he approved it, he would point to it. And then I would keep flipping the pages. I'd say, and then for this one I wanted to use, and if he didn't point, it wasn't going to fly. So I wanted to get that in, as that is a story. And I'm telling you, I think it was like all through Purple Rain, the few meetings I had, which weren't many, he would point. Like when it came time to what's the final going to be, he would just point to the winner, point to the winner, point to the winner. So this went on, and I'm thinking, you know what? I don't know if this is a game, or if he's trying to figure out how much weirdness can this girl take. I can take it. So bring it on. I'll take as weird as you want.
That's hilarious. That's Prince. You've heard many stories where he's just like,
he would sprint. That's it. It's like no need to speak. No need to speak.
Going back to those fonts, I reminded myself, I don't know are you aware of that a lot of those fonts, there are fonts of those now, like you could go on and, okay, I want the Baby I'm a Star font, or I want the da 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 da. And there's people have made fonts of those Prince album stuff.
Really?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember in the early days of the internet, when we first getting on, and Prince fans, we would want to make up, whatever it was, your own art or different things, and you wanted to have that style. There would be, you could go and get, I want the Lovesexy font, and you can go find that. Like, so a lot of your stuff is like people have taken this and just run with it.
That's, it's funny you say Lovesexy, because I hired a great typographer, a brilliant, that was hand done type.
Wow.
Yeah, that was not type. That was not typeset. That was a lot of the stuff I did for Prince. I would hire great typographers to come up with original fonts.
Well, and I would tell you, all of that stuff has spawned all of this, stuff. Like, yeah, it's awesome.
I love that.
Wanted to show this one here as well. I think this is I must be a pass to the Purple Rain tour. So it's like specifically January 14th. And then you're holding the platinum and gold albums. Like, wow.
I was so excited. That was a shock and a surprise that, I was presented these. That's up to the artist, who gets these gold and platinum sales plaques. And I was so touched, because it was my first project with Prince, and I didn't expect that.
And we didn't really touch on it, but you also did the inner, I don't know what they call that in the vinyl.
The label. Oh, you mean the label in the vinyl, or?
Yes, in the vinyl, in the round there.
Yeah. I designed. Yeah, that was the label on the disc, and most of the Prince albums are original, like one of a kind. It wasn't the generic Warner Brothers label. It was a label that I designed, basically.
Again, I have to Do you know how much those mean to us fans? Like they are such a part of each one of those. We call them eras. Each one of those albums. So that's some iconic shit right there. Just the Purple Rain one like that, and we'll get some of the other ones. But yeah, those are huge. I don't know how much time you put into these, but they mean so much to us.
Oh my God. That is, I'm so, that does a lot for my heart, honestly.
It does. It has done a lot for us. Like, yeah, you should be proud of those are dope. And like if they when they do reissues, they have to be exact. If they're not like exactly, then we got a problem. Like those,
I love that. Thank you, Michael.
yeah, those are great. All right. Now we got into Purple Rain because that's the Wayne was Purple Rain. But these next few albums here, these are the ones that we are really most interested in hearing anything we can talk about these. So just jumping into, I see this as some notes. Looks like this was a meeting that you had with Stephen.
Okay,
At
so
least it's dated here. It says 11485 Houston.
Houston, yeah.
Raleigh, if I'm saying his name right. And you're talking about Take Me With You, Baby, I'm a Star, 7-inch.
Yes.
Feel Ease, Noon Rendezvous. Looks like you're working on the 7-inch for that.
Oh my God. Can you put, look, yeah, it kind of blows me away. I'm so glad I took these notes because it is really, it's something when you look back on it, it's really pretty amazing.
Yeah,
So
Prince single, 7-inch here's what I wanted to ask you. It says new Prince single, 7-inch and 12-inch, Golden Gate, and then it says Paisley Park back with She's Always in My Hair.
Harry.
Do you remember what Golden Gate, what was that referencing to? Was that
you know what, Michael? That's interesting because I'm assuming that at the time he may have been toying with the idea that Paisley Park was going to be Golden Gate.
Ooh,
I bet that's a
edge just blew up over here.
Oh my, no, you know, Michael, I never really noticed that, but with Paisley Park in parentheses, that's very much what that could mean. Like Golden Gate, that I don't think that was never a song.
No.
So I bet he was considering that for the name of Paisley Park.
Well, maybe Paisley Park was the song, so you might be right. I wonder if it was somehow. I'm trying to go through the lyrics in my head real quick. Remember that? Wow, that's they're gonna go nuts in the comments for that.
Yeah, that is funny. Paisley Park with Paisley. That is really funny. It could have been. I never even realized that. Be supplied. Okay. Oh my gosh. And so this was the first. Oh, wait. Paisley Park need logo treatments. So back in 85, this is where I started to work on all the Paisley Park stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know what Golden Gate means because Paisley Park, they did have, they need a logo. And look at my notes, treatments in Paisley patterns. That kind of blows my mind because I remember your fans are going to love this, but of course, before Photoshop or anything, he wanted Paisley patterns. I'm like, oh my God. I went to every fabric store in Los Angeles and I got samples, literal samples of Paisley in fabric form. Oh. And then, either photographed them or had them shot as transparencies. I think that's what I picked my favorites. I had them all photographed, and he ultimately picked the Paisley that was used, throughout the duration. But that's how this is back in 85. That's when I started to work on all that Paisley Park stuff.
Wow. You got some other things here where it says produce 2 versions. What was this? Was that say mom something heat or heart? I can't see. At the very top of the page in the second page, there's something material research.
Hecht. Oh, these are like Hecht was copy shot. Oh, that was like Hecht was a photo place, material research. Oh, that was just for, I guess, finding who was going to actually copy the Paisley. I think that's just technical.
Okay. Okay.
But as you could see here, produced two versions. So with even the 45, I was to do two versions, one die cut with the 45-inch hole and one without the hole. So they were that's how specific they got with, like, the holes for 45s were bigger,
Mhm.
you know. And
Okay.
so
Wow.
we're gonna do a version. Maybe he was gonna try to do one with just a regular LP hole. Isn't that funny? That's
Wow. So
that
he
is
was really detail oriented.
logo should be very psychedelic. Isn't this is really, I'm glad I took these notes.
Yeah, we're glad. You even got the date of when they're due, comps due.
Yes, due February release 212. Oh my God. And then the new Prince album, Around the World in a Day.
Mm, mm,
Supplied art, gatefold, the kind that open up,
mhm.
package with lyrics, approximately every art due to time. Maxi single The Bird. Oh my,
Word.
that's
Oh,
so
wow.
funny. That's so funny, Michael.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Of
Oh,
course. Great classic.
oh my gosh.
Name escapes me of the art. This is not Steve Park, is it? I don't want to say it wrong. They'll tear me apart in the comments. But classic.
Oh yeah, this was, well, the guy that painted this, Doug Henders is his
Doug
name.
Hendricks. Okay.
Doug Henders, and you know what? Oddly enough, I never met Doug, which, it's
Hmm.
funny because he, from what you probably know more about this than I do, because you guys do a lot of in-depth Prince stuff, but I believe he went on tour with Prince while he was painting this. And the reason he was still on tour for Purple Rain, when this album was getting, this guy
Mhm.
was so ahead of him. Prince had so much going on. Like, can you imagine? He had already pretty much wrote the entire album for Around the World in a Day, but yet he was still on tour for Purple Rain. And
Mhm.
so this guy, I believe, went on tour, and Prince would change his mind all the time. So there was such a big challenge for this guy because he was constantly having to change. Prince would wake up and the whole thing would change.
Wow. I know there's pictures out there of some of these. Some of these are based off of different pictures and some of the band members and different things. It's a very creative piece of work.
Yeah.
This was another one. I don't know if he ever hears this. There's Doug. This album cover blew my mind when I got into art heavy at this point. I was in advanced placement art classes, and I would do my own sort of interpretations and oil paintings of this
Really?
mixed with like anime imagery and different things. So
Oh
yeah,
my,
this
I
is one
love
of
that.
those things that opened up imagination for me.
Oh, that's so great.
All right, this inner sleeve here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about this one. Was this supplied art background or was it something you did? Or
Yes. This was supplied art.
okay.
And it came like as is. There was, whoever like did the color manipulation, it was all as you see it. That's how I got it.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So I remember when I was working with the brilliant type designer that came up with all this, all the Paisley Park logo. Her name was Margot Chase, and she came up with all these beautiful, the Around the World in a Day, Prince and the Revolution. That's all stuff that was added to the painting and the supplied art of this landscape. But I did, that came as is, and I was so happy because in comparison to the water reflection, I thought, oh, this is going to be so much easier to deal with type, because
Mm,
you'll be able
mhm.
to read it. You could, again, everyone had a different font. He had to approve all that. And, funny story, and this is a true story. I'll never forget the approval process for this all happened when Prince was still on tour with Purple Rain. So
Mm.
I was told to meet him on tour to make sure that, instead of like sending it, the artwork was so big to send, it was just not going to work. So here I am. This is a true story. He was performing in San Francisco at the Cow Palace. I don't even know if that's still up and running.
Hmm.
And I was so young at the time, Michael. I look back and I think, my bosses, they should have taken better care of me, because here I am, like I'm about to be, Prince at this point's huge. I mean, we're talking past Purple Rain or during Purple Rain. So they say, yeah, you'll have to go meet with Prince. And I was basically on my own. It's like, oh, okay, I'm happy to do that. But they said, but you're going to have to meet him at the Cow Palace, like either after the gig or before the gig. Or so Michael, here I am fighting. Like, so I go to San Francisco. I have this massive portfolio because, you can imagine gatefolds were big, so I have to put them in this big portfolio. And I go to rent a car, and I'm in San Francisco, and they're out of, all they have left are stick shift, like stick shift cars. I don't know if you ever drove one.
Tried to.
They're very hard to drive. And I had just gotten a Volkswagen Beetle, and it was forced to learn how to drive stick because that's all, I had to learn it. So I had just learned how to drive a stick, but I'm in San Francisco. Can the hills? Right. With a stick shift. So anyway, it's a nightmare. I get a car with a stick shift, and then I'm going to the Cow Palace with all the other, with the crowd of people that are going there to see him in concert. Wow. I get stuck in concert traffic. I mean, it was kind of a nightmare. I finally park, and I remember getting out of the car with this big portfolio, and there was a storm was coming in. And so there was all this wind, and the portfolio was it was literally, because it was so big, it was like getting affected by the wind. So I finally get in, and I was so beside myself. I was so nervous, and I was so exhausted. I finally get there, and it was either, I don't know if he was about to go on but it was very tense. I remember it was backstage, and they said, okay, you've got 5 minutes. So I run in there, and I lay out all this stuff, and he just looked at it, and he went like this. Like that was that was it. That was the meeting. I go all the way up there. It's like the meeting took 10 seconds, but hey, he liked everything. I didn't have to change a thing. So that's a pretty funny story.
How did you, because this was before cell phones and stuff, how did they know who you were to let you get backstage and all that? I'm just kind of curious.
I'm sure they were probably told, hey, we got the art director coming in from Warner Brothers. She needs to come in to have a meeting with Prince. It was like walkie-talkies. And, but I should have gotten, special parking.
Yeah.
I should have, man, I was
on a wheel car or something. How did you even get to contact them? If you're walking in with everybody else, do you remember how you even?
Yeah, my name was at the will call window, and I was like, obviously I'm here to meet with Prince, and they saw the portfolio, and, but we're talking I look back and I thought, damn, they just threw me out to the wolves. I mean, that was a difficult process to get in there.
Gosh. So here we go once again.
Yeah.
The Around the World in the Day, inner sleeve circle. I don't know what that's called. Another one that was when you saw that, you just knew it was special because, like you said, each one was different. And they weren't like other records that you had. Other records just sort of kept whatever the normal logo layout was. His was super unique to his. It was that added that made him special. So I was like, wow, everything about this is different.
Yeah. All that again, it's a thrill to me all these years later to hear how much it meant to fans, because it's just wonderful to know that.
No, it man. This is as a part of the details is a part of what made Prince so spectacular, because you knew he took the time, even if it was just the point. We didn't know all that, but obviously that he was like, yeah, I want my stuff to be unique, different. I want
Yeah,
my fingerprints on everything I do. And
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
loved it. Let's jump through these.
Yeah.
These are also super important because for a lot of us, the 12 inches
Yeah.
releases were a very big deal. Uh, not
Oh,
only would you get, usually you'd get the longer version or sometimes the original cut of how the song really was, and on the
oh,
album they were edited down. You
yeah.
would get the extended version, but you would get the B-side, which the B-side became the thing about like, okay, the B-side is going to be even better than anything on the record. You got to go get. So these were like mini albums to us, and the artwork was also super iconic. So all of these would be sitting on my walls, at home.
I
Uh,
love that. I love that, Michael.
Incredible.
That is so
Every single
cool.
one.
That's so cool.
Um, oh, so you had mentioned that you did the promotional uh, material for Paisley Park when it first
Yes.
debuted and opened. Did you actually go to back then before you did this part, or were these just images that you were supplied and you came up with? I was very curious about that.
All they gave, no, I was not, I never went in person when I was developing this. They just gave me the beautiful photos. That one main photo was just stunning. I'm not even sure who took these. And
Mm,
they just gave me supplied photos, and that was it. They're like, hey, here's your material, come up with something, and we'll take it from there. And so I was very, it was very unusual to be involved in something that was outside of Warner Brothers, but yet I was
mhm,
still in-house Warner Brothers. But I without sounding too Prince was like, hey, Laura's doing this. I mean, it was all up to him. So when I look back as a full-fledged adult now, I'm looking back at the label thinking, it was pretty cool of them, because Warner Brothers had nothing to do with Paisley Park. And they agreed. They're like, okay, we'll let Laura take her time. That's really our time, and let her work on the stuff for Prince. So they were, looking back, I think they were pretty cool about that.
okay. Okay. We're about to jump into another one. Uh,
Yeah. Yes, sir. Oh,
so Parade,
oh man.
Kiss, and all of that. This stuff, not only was it, I don't want to say it was simplistic, it was just a total contrast
Yes.
to, I would say, the just all of the stuff that, there was so much going on. This was almost simplistically like Prince, and it was also visually different Prince. That was
Yes.
stunning to see him look like that. And I also have to preface it to say that back then, again, I always say this is before the internet, there wasn't that many opportunities to see Prince visually.
That's right.
Um, you would see whatever the promotional material and the album and sometimes the video, but then there would be 6 months a year as a
Yeah.
fan, you didn't see anything.
Right.
And then he would just come out and look like that. And it was like,
Yeah. When did that happen? Right.
that's Prince. Whoa. So just
Yeah.
him visually was such an artistic piece because he would switch we have a whole subset podcast we call Switch the Style Up. He would
Yeah.
switch the style up so much. So
Yeah.
you getting these pictures, and because I am in the heat of the moment, I'm saying this to the audience, because I'm in the heat of the moment talking to Laura, I am forgetting the people's names that I know. He's on the tip of my tongue, the photographer.
Oh, Jeff Katz.
Jeff Cass, yes. Salute to Jeff, legendary.
Yeah. Jeff
When you
Katz.
get these pictures, or I don't know how this works, please walk us through when you first get the materials and the conversation, not only for this, but of course the iconic cover.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, Michael, this is a great story. Go back to the other. Go back to the single sleeve.
Yep.
The first. Okay. All right. Now this. All right. Now, so at this point in time, I've done Purple Rain around the world in a day. All right. And I haven't spent that much time with Prince. Obviously, I feel like, he trusts me. He's here I am on the next project. So I was feeling like, oh, this is great. Like I was just so thrilled and honored that this relationship was working.
Mm.
So here comes the next release, Parade. And so I get, once again, all I get out of the gate is this photo of Prince. And I'm like you, I was like, oh my God, this is so different. I can't, and something told me, I thought, I would love to see I'd love to see this photo session. Like it was the first time that I thought, I felt confident enough to say to management, can I see the rest of the photo session just to see, like, maybe there's a different photo, or, like, I was actually not just going to lay down and go, oh, great, so that's the cover. Something told me, like, you need to see the rest of this of this photo. So they said, oh, okay, we'll do that, because they had asked him, of course, and he said, sure, she could see the whole session. So I get the whole session, and okay, go to the next slide. Okay. All right, Michael. So I see these, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. I thought those were the most beautiful photos I'd ever seen of him. They were, I fell in love with those images. And I thought, I have got to change this guy's mind. Like, how am I going to do this? So
can I stop here 1 second, just so I can understand what you're saying? Are you saying that other image that's on the Kiss 12-inch, that was going to be the cover of the album?
Yeah.
Whoa, I had no idea about that.
Yeah. Wow. That was going to be the cover. And, it's a great shot, but I don't know. It didn't feel like an album cover photo to me. Like, let's go back.
That was going to be the cover. Wow.
That was going to be the cover of Parade. Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
That was going to be it. And I liked it. I didn't love it. I just thought I need to see other photos if I can. So, I go through the session and there are these photos. And I'll tell you what, I think they're to date the most provocative and sexiest. They're the ultimate photos of Prince, in my opinion. Okay, so I'm thinking to myself, I don't have I didn't have the gumption to just switch it up, because you got to respect Prince. I don't want to step on his toes. I wanted to stay in his good graces, but I thought, you know what, Lord, just let's do this. I thought to myself, I will, of course, give him what he wanted to begin with, like use that cover, use that photo. But in addition to that, I'm going to work up these photos because these are much better. And there's no better way to do this than to just present it artistically, present it as mock-ups. So I'm looking at these photos and I thought, okay, I got an idea. And I think I even went to my boss and made sure this was okay to do, because it involved a gatefold, which is more money. And, there's budgets, and I can't start spending money for someone that's not my money to do. So I said, all right, the thing that's going to convince Prince to use these, not only are they great photos, but if we did a gatefold, I could put his belly button on the spine, and he is going, that's gonna make him, he's gonna go, like, I knew he would dig that so much. So if you go to the next slide, or is it the one before where you see the gatefold?
Yes.
Look at the belly button.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
Right on the spine. And Michael, I knew as soon as he saw it, he was like, hands down, he didn't even hesitate. He's like, that's it. And so to me, the parade package was a major turning point for me as his main go-to designer, art director, because this was the first time that I was art directing and not just designing. Because art direction, it's a whole nother thing. You're getting it at the ground level. You're concepting. That's all within art direction. So this was a big deal for me. This one was a big deal.
Wow. And again, I have to ask, are you doing this without hearing any of the music associated with this, or had you heard anything yet?
No.
And also, were you assume you're aware of the movie or knew of the aesthetic of the movie design wise, or just the black and white nature of it?
The only aesthetic I knew was the black and white. They said it's going to be in black and white. It's kind of retro. I guess it was, roaring 20s-ish. Like they were giving me real basic ideas. I never heard the music, nor did I ever see anything in the movie. And it was strictly based on these stark images.
Wow. It's fascinating because to hear you say you didn't have any of those other reference points necessarily. I mean, they told you things, but you didn't see it. And the fact that it all gels together, though, you're working here on the visual component of the album while they're doing this movie and all this other stuff, but it all looks as if it's one cohesive.
Yeah.
I would have assumed, because again, I'm looking at it from a fan perspective. I'm thinking, oh yeah, she's probably been playing this music.
Yeah.
Is what it calls out to her. But so it's fascinating the way that it has come together. It's incredible.
Exactly. So this is again a very funny story with this package. Is once I had done all this, like he wasn't aware what he thought he was gonna. So he decided, one of the rare things about Prince, he didn't come into Warner Brothers that often. Okay. But for this particular approval process, he had planned to come in. And he wanted a meeting, an art meeting, to see like all the mock-ups that I had done. Plus, this is also something you gotta love the guy for this. When I look back, he did not like your typical record biz, like the upper, the suits. He didn't like the guys on top. He never wanted to deal with them. But the creative director at the time, I think he had asked management, like, man, I want to be involved. Like, Prince is so cool. So he kind of like sort of invited his way into being part of this process. Okay. So when Prince came in, so we're having the big meeting and we're going to have it in the creative director's office, who is the first time he even met Prince. He's never been involved with Prince and his visuals. So anyway, we have the meeting in his office, the creative director. And, I pull out the stuff that he was expecting to see. And, he was, he liked it, and then when I pulled this out, like I said, I remember he just was so surprised. And he said something like, oh, he always talked like this, Michael. You have to understand. He never talked higher than this, his volume. And he goes, oh, yeah. He goes, I dig that. I dig that. So, I knew, like, okay, that was the moment. But here's the part that blows me away about Prince and how he was so, he was such a good guy and like when it came to me and the whole politics of the label, you could tell like he still wanted me to, like, Laura's really the one, like she came up with this. Like, so I remember when we were getting credits together he actually took the time, because we had met with the creative director at the time. He wanted to make sure, like, who does this? Imagine Prince. Like, he actually he wanted to make sure that in the credits, my name came above the creative director's name. In the credits. Like, who thinks of that? You know,
I love it.
Anyway, I just thought it was one of those really remarkable moments where it was the only time that he had met with a higher up. Like, this guy was the senior VP, creative director, and he thought he was like the coolest thing that ever happened to the record business. And here's Prince saying, "Oh no, Laura's name's going to come above this guy. So make sure that happens."
Love it. Love it. That's Prince, man. Like, he recognized the real ones putting in work. You know?
I'm telling you, it was really remarkable. I mean,
Yeah.
that was, I was blown away by that.
Wow.
And
That's
then if you could go back one more, Michael, to the slides. So I just wanted to explain that beautiful collage. So that was the front and back, obviously. And then when you opened up the gatefold, I think it should be the
yes.
So what I had done here is, because it was so stark, like that front and back were so stark, I wanted the inside to be just like, just so dense. And I thought, it can't just be a bunch of photos. So I hired this remarkable collage artist. Her name is Ann Field. She was incredible. I gave her all these Jeff Cat photos, and I said, just have at it. Just go ahead and do me the best collage you can do with all these photos. So she came up with this, and I just thought it was brilliant.
Another one that I don't think is in here is the inner sleeve art as well. That was also a collage. I'm going to see if I can.
Oh yeah, I remember that. She had done the gatefold, and then you're right, she did the dust sleeve.
Let me see if we can bring that up. That was another piece of art that I had to put it on the wall.
Yeah.
That was give me 1 second. Actually, it may be too hard to do, and I'll throw it in as an insert, but yeah, that artwork.
I've got it. Yeah, we could stop for a moment, and I could hold it. I got it in my vinyl collection.
Actually, that's okay. Let me do this.
Okay.
Let me do this. I do want to show it.
I just love that my kitty's in the corner of the couch.
He's chilling.
That's so damn cute.
Here we go.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
As best I can get it, but
yep.
That was
isn't that
this
great?
picture here with, if you can see that picture there, just was so striking to me, because again, you rarely got to see very clear on pictures of Prince sometimes.
Yes.
It's just a different type of look. I was like, wow, he looks totally different. Like, and just the pictures with the band and stuff. And
isn't that great? Yeah, I'll tell you what, I think Jeff Katz did amazing work with Prince. And I'll tell you what, kudos to Jeff, because he was the most modest, accommodating, ego aside, you let me know what you want, Prince. Like, Prince, that's why, Prince, he worked with Jeff Katz for years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, incredible.
Beautiful. Yeah, he really did.
And again,
with the thank you, Michael. Graphic design is, not everybody gets it, but like, this is graphic design. It's like, it's the subtlety of it, the placement of the song titles. Like, this is graphic design right here.
I have to ask you, the Paisley Park logo, who came up with that?
That was, I hired the woman who did all of the Around the World in a Day, all that wonderful, like, psychedelic. She came up with the Paisley Park logo. Her name, is Margot Chase, and sadly she has passed, but
Right.
she did amazing work.
Absolutely. I have a refrigerator magnet of sitting on my refrigerator, that logo. So it's just like, again,
That's funny.
I hope she knew how
Oh,
much that meant to us. That's
yeah, yeah. She nailed it. She nailed that one. I loved it.
good. Yes, she did. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. The
Mhm.
Mountains 12-inch.
Yep.
Again, the 12 inches for us were mini albums. So these were up on the wall,
Oh, I
become
love that.
iconic. I
Love
love
that.
just the simplicity of the Prince and the Revolution with the mountains up here.
Yep.
And you flipped it. It was almost like a double cover. You had
Yeah. Yeah.
Alexis Paris. Ah, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It was thank you. Like I love this package and everything that came to fruition around these images. I was just so happy.
Another one. Well, if you can remember, I noticed the font is a little different in terms of the style here. Was that just again to make
Yeah,
sure each song had its own sort of identity font style, or
yeah, I'm surprised he went for this. I guess it was just he just wanted, whatever he was wide open, and it was just typesetting. So yeah, kind of breaking away from what I would typically use for prints, but he obviously he liked it enough to use it. So that was like a one off.
okay? Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We're gonna call this part two. This is just like if you went to the Love Sexy concert and you saw the first half, took the intermission. Now we back for the second half. So we
Woo!
are here. We're here with Laura. Thank you, Laura, again for joining us and being with us today. This is a blessing to us. So we're
Oh,
excited.
I'm loving it. Thank you.
Well, let's dive right into Sign of the Times. Sign of the Times is my favorite Prince
Oh,
album of all
oh
time.
my
Yeah,
gosh, me
this is
too.
yeah.
Oh, Michael, it's just it's just a brilliant. It's so brilliant.
It is incredible. I can't show you because I'm in a different room. In my living room, I have a giant, I think 65 by 65-inch print of the cover of the album
What?
hanging. Yes.
You're kidding?
I'm not kidding.
Oh my
I
god,
have it blown up. Yeah, it's
that's
if I could, I would have the whole wall uh as with the backdrop, kind of look of the backdrop. But
you are. I'm loving this. Man.
I don't know if you can see in the back behind the picture on the screen is a piece of the Sign of the Times art back there.
Oh yeah, I noticed that when we first came on. There, I noticed that.
Yeah, so I love everything about this
Oh
album.
my gosh. Okay. Yeah. This was magic. This one was magic.
So, Sign of the Times, your notes here. This says meeting with Prince in Minneapolis on January 23rd, 1987.
Yeah.
Please walk us through like
Okay.
this because this
All right.
I'm waiting for this.
This is a good one. This is a good one because there's a great story connected with this, and this was one of the first times that I actually had like a set date. Like I knew I was going to meet with Prince. I had a fairly good amount of time to do all the artwork, to put everything together, and then fly to Minneapolis and meet with. So it was it was very organized. Like a lot of times, I felt like there wasn't enough time, or suddenly I would get photos thrown at me, or having to come up with and scramble. And so this one was like, okay, you're going to be meeting with Prince. We're going to fly to Minneapolis. So it was all kind of like nicely presented for a change.
Okay.
So I get photos. So Jeff Katz had been to Minneapolis ahead of me. When let's backtrack. When Prince never needed an art director, because he was the art director.
Mhm.
So he would often, well, really most of the time, he and Jeff would work together. I was never involved with their photo sessions ever. because Prince was the art director and Jeff, he did whatever he was told pretty much. So it wasn't unusual. So I get these photos from management that Jeff Katz had gone to Minneapolis and Prince is coming out with a new one. It's called Sign of the Times. And I believe if I'm remembering this right, Prince already knew pretty much that image was going to be the cover. So it wasn't like, hey, Laura, you got 3 different images he wants you to play around with. It was primarily like this is the image. So here's the cover. And really that's pretty much, besides a couple of photos of him that Jeff had taken that wound up on the dust sleeve or various singles. That was all I got. So it's like, here's the cover image. You need to come up with everything else, sort of thing. So, okay, I have this image. So the first thing I do is like, okay, I'm going to need some really cool type. I don't see, this is not a typesetting kind of thing. So I called for a change. I had another friend, brilliant with type. This guy was he's the guy that did Madhouse. Like I thought, I guess with Margot was so good, but I guess, just like any art director, you've got such a pool of talent, you want to let's work with some different blood this time. Mm-hmm. So I hired my friend, his name is Glenn Parsons, and he comes up with this logo, Prince Sign of the Times. And if I'm remembering right, I think he did maybe he did 2 or 3 versions. So the big art meeting that was going to take place is I was going in with, a couple of different logos to show him, and then just ideas for the back cover and, putting basically taking this photo and doing the rest and coming, so I had my big, because it was, there were so many variations of the logos. It was quite a lot of stuff to carry with me, but it wasn't the big, the big portfolio. This was not going to be a gatefold. Okay. So at that point in time, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling my confidence is growing with Prince. And again, like I said, Prince, he's not the kind of guy that like sits down and you have a conversation. That just doesn't have, it hadn't happened. Like we didn't have that kind of rapport, but there was this unspoken respect. He obviously loved my work. So there was a lot of like unspoken, like, yeah, you're my girl. And I'm going to, you're my go-to. And that was, I felt that 100%. But, me and Prince, we didn't hang out. Like, I wasn't a musician, you know what I'm saying? So I'm all prepared and I'm real happy with the stuff and I feel really good. So I fly to Minneapolis, and I remember I'm from Cleveland, but I'd been in Los Angeles for quite some time, and I forgot what winter feels like. And I remember, I had my cool, I thought I was so cool. I had found this, I love thrift store clothing and going to like, all these cool places to get like 50s clothing. And I'd found this old motorcycle jacket, like from the 50s. And I thought I was so cool wearing my motorcycle jacket to this meeting. And Michael, I remember walking outside. This thing had no lining, wasn't terrible. It wasn't in very good shape. It was so cold. It was like 3 below. I'll never forget it. I forgot how cold feels. So anyway, I was told, okay, you get there, you're going to go straight to Paisley Park, and you're going to have your meeting. I'm like, yeah, sounds good to me. So I think, I don't know, maybe I guess I took a cab. I don't remember how I got to Paisley Park, but I guess I could have rented a car. I probably rented a car. So I go to Paisley Park, and I'll never forget, like when Paisley Park was brand new, it was like you walk into Paisley Park, everything was white. It was white marble. It was There were skylights everywhere. Like I'd never seen it in person. And it was just like this. It was so, a lot of marble floors. So I remember walking in, and it was such a shock because there was like, you could hear a pin drop. There was like nobody around. And I remember someone who finally, like, who let me in, they said, okay, we're waiting to hear from Prince. We're waiting to hear like where you guys are going to meet. And so he said, come and you could just hang out here. And it was some lobby. I was in a lobby. Okay. It was just me and the couch, So I'm waiting for like, where am I going to go have my meeting with Prince? I'm sitting there like 5 minutes or so. And all of a sudden I hear the click, 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 click. And I was like, oh my God. Because I'm waiting for, somebody else to come and shuffle me into a room somewhere. And I knew, Michael, I'm like, oh my God, it's Prince. Like, I know that's Prince. So I remember like, I was about to turn around and I'm not kidding. This is for real. All of a sudden I hear, he goes, hey, LiPuma. And I was like, oh my God, am I in a dream? And I look at him. I turn around. He goes, and he's like bopping up to me, like he goes, hey, LiPuma. I decided we're not going to meet here at Paisley Park. I'm going to take you to my house. We're gonna have the meeting at my house.
Oh wow!
And I'm like, oh my God. First of all, I wasn't used to Prince just being a guy.
Right.
Hey, LiPuma, like what? Like, so like I was so taken. I was off. Like I was off my game. I didn't expect it. And I was like, okay. And he goes, hey, follow me. I'm driving. And I'm like, oh my God.
Head blown.
Oh my God. Okay. So I go, I'm trying to be normal too. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm gathering my things. And I remember like we're walking down we're like, it's all marble and the sound of his boots. I'll never forget the click, click, click. And he was acting like he just seemed so happy. Like I'd never seen the side of him. So I'll never forget, like he had this enormous, big, beautiful black BMW. He's driving. So we get in the BMW, and I'm like, I was trying to be cool, but it's like, I was nervous as hell. Like I didn't expect. So I get out there. This is the funniest part. So he's pulling out of Paisley Park. We got a good 20-minute drive. It's not like his house at the time was not right around the corner. Okay. So I remember we drive out of Paisley Park, and I was so nervous, I couldn't get the seatbelt to snap. Like I'm going like. I'm thinking to myself, does he even? I'm sure he's like laughing to himself, thinking, "Oh, this girl can't even buckle a seatbelt." Okay, she's nervous, which I was.
Right.
Anyway, I finally buckle my belt, and he actually said to me, he goes, "How was your flight?" I'm like, and I wanted to say, you know what, Prince? I prefer, like, I got used to you, the guy that points and doesn't speak. Like, can we go back to that? I can't. This is too much for me, for you to, like, be a normal guy. I just can't,
Oh, there he is.
So we're having, like, ridiculous small talk, which I never dreamed I'd have with Prince. But we're just having small talk. And finally, we get to Paisley. We get to his home, which I remember pulling in. It was this big, like French style, big, beautiful home, pretty isolated. There was a lot of property around it. We pull into the garage, and, you could get, you go right into the house from the garage. So, we go into the house, and Michael, nobody's there. Like nobody's there. And I was expecting, like, I don't know, some of his posse hanging around. There were always people hanging around,
Right.
Nobody is there. Nobody's there. And I'm like, oh shit, it's just a Prince and I. Oh my God. I was like, Laura, calm the hell down. This is like, just, okay, you just make the best of this. This is like okay. So we go into his dining room. The house was beautiful. We go into his dining room. There's a big table. And I pull out all the stuff I'd been working on. And, when it came to the art, I always had confidence about that because, I knew he liked my work. And so I'm laying everything out and he's like, man, he goes, and he's looking at the different logos and he goes, oh yeah, that's the logo. Like he actually, like right away, he went for the one you see there.
Really?
That's it. That's it. That's it. Basically end the meeting. It was like boom, boom, boom. And I think these notes that you see here were just some of the details, like, stripping the guitar had to be stripped in the final. Details, like I had done a couple of back covers. That's the one he wanted. So I was amazed because he was so happy and it was like, oh, boom, boom, boom. It's done. Like the meeting was probably 7 minutes. Okay. He's not going to dilly dally.
Gotcha.
So I was like, oh, like all that time working at it and you're always nervous and it couldn't have gone better. I was so relieved. And so here we are at his house, like, so meeting's over 7 minutes later. And he goes, Laura, I got a little present for you. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, oh, okay. so he goes, follow me. And
Whoa.
so we get up from his dining room table. Nobody's there. And we head to the stairs. We head to the stairs.
What's going through your mind right now? What was going through?
I was my mind was so altered. And I'm like, oh my God, we're going upstairs. Like, what are we doing? Like, what is going on here? So I never, even for a hair of a second, I never felt like, oh, this is going to get funky. This is like, what if this can't be happening, but what if something I never thought for a hair of a second, like that anything weird was going on. And I thought, okay, he's got a present for me and we're going upstairs. So we go up these steps, which felt like it took forever to ascend these stairs. And Michael, we get to the top of the stairs and there's this massive room. And I'll never forget, it was circular. It was a circular room. And we go into the circular room and it was flanked by these curved closets. They were massive, these closets on either side in this big, massive cushion in the middle. And he goes, Laura, you can just wait right here and I'll be back with your present. And I thought, well, phew, okay, I'm glad I don't have to go any further. Like, okay. That's good. So I'm in this room, right? He disappears into the next room, which I'm sure was his bedroom. And I'm like looking around, and I couldn't resist. I was like, I just want to see a little bit, like what's in those, like the closets were open. So you didn't have to like open a door and be intrusive. So I kind of glanced in. And do you know, Michael, one of them, all that it had were his boots. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So he had boots, every color you can imagine, hanging on hangers, 2 of every color under the rainbow.
Wow.
And they were just hanging perfectly, 2 in each color, just as long as the closet was, and it was curved. I remember going, oh my God, oh my God, I'm standing here in Prince's boot closet. I just thought, this is like, I never expected any of this. So I gather my wits again, and so he comes out, and he's like, this is for you. And I remember, I don't think it was wrapped. it wasn't wrapped. So he hands me, it was a set of, like, I'm thinking, oh my God, am I going to get some like cool jewelry that has like the Prince logo or, I had no idea. So what it was, it was a leotard. Okay. Like a top and bottom of a leotard.
Is it one of the pictures I think you sent me?
Yeah. So if you want to go to that picture.
I was wondering what that was about. Yeah,
okay. These are more notes,
This.
Yes. So, so Michael, this peach leotard was like, hey, I got something for you. I'm like, oh my God. So this is what he hands me. And as I'm like, and I was like, wow, I know Prince. So I guess like that was his way of saying, man, you're in the inner circle now, honey. Like you know Prince. It's like, so,
oh wow,
so
this is so interesting.
I'm not kidding. This is what he handed me, and I remember like folding it back up, and he goes, okay. He goes back downstairs, and basically that was it. Like that was the meeting. We left the house.
Huh.
We went back to Paisley Park, and he thanked me again. He was very gracious, and he said, I'm really excited about this package. And it was like, it was the most like normal. It was like a, I think about it now and in retelling it, it was like a dream. Like the entire time I was in his house, going up the stairs, up that long staircase, and him handing me this leotard. And I'll tell you what, that leotard smelled like his French perfume for years. I never put it on. And then when I had my daughter, she's like, I want to put on that Prince leotard. I'm like, hail to the no one's ever putting that on, honey. Right. Nobody.
So I imagine you still have this in your possession.
Oh yeah, that I just photographed it for my. Yeah, so I have it. It doesn't smell like him anymore, unfortunately. Wow. But it's pristine and never been worn, baby.
Wow, I was looking over the pictures and I was like, I didn't know what I was like, wonder what this is about. I had no idea it was. What's fascinating is, so you were meeting with him to show the final sort of art of the Sign of the Times project.
Yeah.
Now, to me, looking at this, when I first saw this, I said, "Oh, this is a Lovesexy thing."
Exactly.
Because I know was the song on Lovesexy. Even the styling of this dress is the Lovesexy aesthetic. But this is blowing my mind that he had this back even before Sign of the Times came out.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting, Michael? Because Prince being so genius that he had so many ideas flowing in and out of that brain all the time. He had a lot of his Lovesexy visual sensibilities and the whole visual vibe of that release. He already had it. He already had it.
Man.
So that's a good observation, because that is very Lovesexy. Because see the eyeball?
Yep.
Okay. In the Lovesexy package, this is before computers. Every single eye, like I went here, I went there. Guess what had to be used? That eyeball. That eyeball. So that graphic in Lovesexy, I mean, the typesetter did a brilliant job, because I wasn't going to splice in 10,000 eyeballs. Like, no. So the typesetter actually put it in photographically. Like every time there was an eye, he put in that eyeball. But that is a very interesting point, that yes, that he had already had that in the can.
Man, well, thank you for sharing that story. That was a brilliant story, going to his house. And what I love about it is that when you described his demeanor,
oh my God,
he went from being, like you said, he would just point, kind of doing that Prince thing, to like, hey, he's a totally different type of person.
All right. And then listen, this is another wonderful thing to interject, because again, like when Prince was so thoughtful to, make sure my name was put above the Mr. Hot in the Pants creative director doofus that thought he was so freaking cool. So along those lines, two times he came into Warner Brothers for big meetings, like with the president and the chairman of the board, twice. Okay. And both times, what he asked of me for those meetings? Like, these were meetings that had nothing to do with art. Okay. He was coming in to like talk to the big boys about, you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted me to come down to the lobby and escort him to the president's office.
Really?
And he knew like what a big deal that would be, because everyone, like, the limo pulls up, like, Prince is here. And then here's me, the little old Laura from the art department, and I greeted him, and we walked side by side. It was like very ceremonial. We walked side by side. He knew how to get to Mo Austin's office. He knew where it was.
Yeah.
But no, he wanted me to escort him. And I always thought that was one of the coolest damn things he ever did. Because he was just showing the whole company, like, she's my girl here.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, that meant a lot to me.
How did your coworkers, and how did they feel?
Oh, they were blown away. They just thought it was the coolest damn thing. I mean, they knew. They're like, man, Laura, he could, like, it was the perfect union, because I was such a fan, and I got him. See, the thing is, I'm a fan and I understood him. And so it was a match made in heaven.
Wow. I have to say this, we got 30 minutes, so we're going to go nuts here. This is a couple other things I want to make sure we get into.
Yeah.
Sign of the times. I saw there was a note here. This was talking about, I guess this is for the 12-inch single, the notes here about this part with Cat.
Oh yeah, front cover. Let's see. Retouching.
Did he tell you the color peach?
Yes. Oh wait, no, he didn't specify a PMS color, but everything was to be peach and black. He was done with the purple. Purple did have, back in the day, we had PMS colors. Do designers still use those? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, they do. Yep.
Okay. So yeah, PMS purple. It was 264 or 265. He was over that at that point. Is like peach and black. So I picked the peach, whatever that was. I don't know what it was, a PMS peach. Okay. And everything in this package obviously was based on peach and black.
Got it. This is a small thing, but again, as I mentioned at the start, when this came out, it was what we call a head buster. It was just like, whoa, really? This is crazy. What is this? There's one little thing on the back of this that always blew my mind, and it jumped out to me. The wording here, highly explosive. Was that something? I assume he said put that in there some way or something.
What does that even say?
So it says la 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 he, and then there's a small type. It just says highly explosive, and then it just said, original version of Sign of the Times is on the forthcoming. But just that normal type of highly explosive, I assume he must have just told you I need to have it, has to say that or something. Like, as a kid, when I saw that, I was just like, oh, this is gonna be crazy. Like, this is highly explosive. Why would they use that?
Michael, that's so funny, because he obviously that was part of it wasn't part of the song title. I would have used that font. So he must have. I don't remember what it even referred to, but the fact that it was such straight up type, that's very funny. That's hilarious.
I mean, and that was the only, that was the first single, and this was the only thing that we had to go by. Yeah. I was just like, it's just one of those things. It just plays with your imagination so much. You don't know what to make of this. This is before you could go online and try to like look up and find out,
That's really funny.
This font typography is so iconically
I
brilliant.
know.
To copy this, I I've played around with this and so many different things. Like, say the gentleman's name who came up with this again.
Glenn Parsons.
Glenn Parsons. Oh,
Yeah.
I
It's
love this style.
I know. I know. And I'll tell you, unfortunately, and this is real, I felt very bad for Glenn because, he was a good friend of mine and I gave him a lot of work. And he was so excited about this. But Prince was very, very deliberate and conservative when it came to credits.
Mm.
And the credits for Prince, it was all up to him. And originally, I always tried to credit where credit is due. So I would try to credit like Margot Chase and this, and sometimes he just he didn't want those. And he was like, no, we're not going to credit. We're just going to keep it the basics. And I was very heartbroken for Glenn because he didn't want the type. He just thought it was too many art credits. And I remember thinking, I felt so bad for him because it was such a huge part of this package. So he just didn't, he excluded his credit, which was unfortunate.
Well, we're giving him his flowers today, sir. Thank you. You see
I'll
this.
make sure that he sees this.
This is awesome. Like, and this is another one. I remember looking years ago online. There's the Sign of the Times font set.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, all of this stuff. Yeah, this is.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So yeah, this is incredible. Of course, Cat Glover, incredible. Was this, just to go to the cover here, Sign of the Times? Was that the original idea for this 12-inch to have that with the heart, or were there other pictures if you remember?
Prince, being Prince, he always wanted that for this cover. It was very specific. That's something he came up with, and there wasn't any alternative to look at or deal with. That's what he wanted. Okay. So no, it was very straight up provided. It was one photograph. I don't think anything's retouched in there, so it was a straight shot.
Wow. Just to jump out of this for one quick second, and I'm not, were you ever aware of the backstory of the Sign of Times? That I don't know if it ever made it to the point where art was involved, where he had been working on. It was called Crystal Ball album before it turned into this. I'm just curious if they had ever approached the art department. Okay.
No. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because it was a 3-album thing that he did called Crystal Ball. And maybe in one of those meetings that you may have escorted him to see Mo on, he presented it to them and they was like, we can't do this.
Oh, maybe.
Sign of the Times is an edited down version of that.
Oh, yeah, that's probably true. Okay. Very good. Yeah, interesting. Laura, let's see. Try working this up for an in-store poster. Oh, okay. That wound up as the so that it was two. So I did put that together. Both shots should go together. Listen to him. Could be very interesting. I just, I love seeing the way he wrote so casually. Thanks. And he always thanked me, and he always said, "Love God, Prince." Always. Yeah.
I love that shot too with the boot.
Yeah.
He always was like, what? Again, when you're looking back to these back in the day, you didn't get a clear picture of his face. The cover was kind of blurred, but you had the other flip side. But I always was like, what did this mean? He's got his boot. On it, like, and the colors and everything was just like interesting.
I love that. And see that boot, those are the boots that I saw in his closet in every color imaginable. Isn't that great?
I don't know, are you aware that they have an exhibit, or I'm using the right word. If you go to Paisley Park during the tour, there was a whole exhibit of his shoes in this brilliant glass case and all.
Oh, really? Oh, how cool. How cool. Oh, I love this.
You got the look. 12-inch with Housequake.
All right. Well, this we're going in. Oh, yeah. You got the look. Yeah. This is still, I guess Jeff Katz must have done a whole other photo session.
Yeah, there's a lot of these pictures. There's a tour book. I don't know if you've ever seen that has all of these. I mean, let me ask you this: while I got you here, were you involved, or have you, the reissue of Sign of the Times that they had a few years ago, like the super deluxe edition?
Oh no, unfortunately, no. Do you have that?
I have it. It's in the other room. I mean, they released what they call a super deluxe edition. It is a thick box. There's 13 LPs. There's a whole other book, photo book. Oh, you should have a copy of that.
Oh wow, who put it out? You know?
Oh, Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers.
Oh my God. Okay, I will definitely look into that. How cool!
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Oh, that's incredible.
Oops. If I Was Your Girlfriend, Shockadelica.
Yeah.
So pictures like this, was this picture, the cover picture, was that provided to you like that, or is that something you did? Because I'm like, that's Photoshop, but I didn't have Photoshop like that back then. So I was curious how they were able to how they do stuff like that.
I think in this case, I think that was provided.
Okay.
And he probably asked Jeff, Jeff put this together for me, and he loved it. So yeah, that was all provided.
Okay. Let me see where we're going here. So this was about la 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 he he.
Oh, and Michael, just for your fans,
yes.
That is his writing on the left-hand side.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's laying. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's his writing. The la 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 he. That's him. I did not write that. That he wrote it. He took my little notebook, because I'd always have these notebooks at our meeting, and he wrote that, and it said meeting number 2, Minneapolis. Yep. So I just love that was, and you know what's interesting, under he. I wonder what he crossed out.
Oh, you know what?
I wonder, because that's when he thought of like that little line that you pointed out.
Oh, yeah. I wonder.
Yeah. Who knows? I don't know what's under there. Interesting.
It is interesting. I always feel like sort of unlocking, going, oh, the mystery is in it.
Yes.
I'm just gonna jump a little bit here.
I think the next would be Lovesexy, of course.
Yeah. Oh, Black Album.
Oh my God.
Now, I'm sure you were aware. Obviously, you did this.
Yeah.
And how did you hear what did you think when he decided that he wasn't going to put this out?
Because I was just in the art department, I never knew the politics behind it, but apparently, he wasn't, you probably know more about this than I do, but I think he just realized, I don't think this is up to par. But I remember everyone was always so concerned about his packaging. I'll never forget, I went to visit a friend in Seattle, as a matter of fact, who's still there. And when this was getting printed, like, okay, Michael, you see, it's all black. And all there is a peach number on the spine. They actually called me from the printer, and he said, do you want a warm black or a cold black? I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm on vacation. Just make it freaking black. I couldn't believe that they were tracking me down. That's just a funny behind the scenes story.
I love it. That's funny.
Yeah. Yes. Oh,
Lovesexy.
Oh man. The last one, Michael.
So the cover.
Okay. All right. The cover, I'll tell you what, great story. And I know we were running out of time, but I have to tell you the story.
Yeah.
So I was told, for Lovesexy, like I said, I never went to photo sessions. That was always how it was. And I heard he was going to be doing a photo session in LA. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see the photos, blah, blah, blah. So I'm at work. It's about 4:00, and I get a call from Prince's management. And they're like, man, Prince is shooting the Lovesexy cover today, and he wanted to know if you could go. And I'm like, go to the photo session? And they go, yeah, he wants you there. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll go. Mind you, Michael, I'm like, I never art direct photo sessions for him. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go. So I show up at another one of these big sound stages, and I walk in, and this guy, Jean-Baptiste Mendino from Italy, great guy. And he comes up to me, and he's a little embarrassed. he goes, Laura, in this wonderful Italian accent. He goes, okay, I'm about to shoot Prince. And I look over, and usually you're in a photo studio, you can see like the lights are set up, and you see where the artist is going to be sitting. And there's a big wall. Like all I see is a big wall. He goes, now, Laura, I just want you to know these are instructions from Prince. He wants you seated on the other side of this wall while I'm photographing him. He wants you to sit here, and then I'm going to photograph him. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Like, I'm just to sit behind the wall while you're photographing him on the other side of the wall. And he goes, yes, I know it's strange, but that's what he wants to do. I'm like, okay. So I'm on this little like folding chair. There's no music. He gets photographed. Boom, boom, boom. 30 minutes later, it's over. I don't even see Prince. He doesn't say hello or goodbye. And Jean-Baptiste, he goes, thank you very much, Laura. It's done. I'll send you the photos when they're ready. So Michael, I'm thinking, okay, that was weird. And can you imagine looking back now when I mean, he wanted me to be sitting. Was he naked? I don't know. But look at that cover. I just think it is just one of those really funny inside stories. Okay.
So you were there
I was there behind the wall. I never saw him. He never said hello or goodbye. And that I swear to God is a true story.
But he wanted you there. That's it.
He wanted me there, which never happened. I was never at a photo session. This was the only one. And I didn't know what the image was. I didn't know what they were doing. Well, this is what they were doing.
Now, wow. So when you finally got the photos, were there a number of poses like this, or I'm just very curious?
No. Okay. By the time I got this image, Jean-Baptiste Mendino had put the whole thing together, and that was the cover. That was the cover. There was no discussing it. He didn't even want type printed on the cover. And here's the weirdest part. It's a great inside story. He did not want, he made me promise through the management, nobody is to see this cover before it's released. Nobody.
Oh, wow.
Not the president, not the chairman of the board. Nobody's going to see this cover until it's done and printed and out. So at one point, the president of the company comes into my office. He goes, Laura, what's going on with this Prince cover? We can't. And I said, Lenny, his name was Lenny Warnicker. I said, Lenny, you're putting me in a weird spot. I've made a promise not to show you. And he, being a really cool guy, said, okay. And so I just think that's a funny inside story.
I've never heard about that.
Never wanted anybody, and nobody did, because I'm the only one that had the artwork. So, and they were like, well, we hope it's okay. And I'm like, it is what it is.
So what did you think about it? You knowing what it was, did you know, like, yo, this could be kind of controversial or something like, or did you think?
I didn't think I personally did not think it was controversial. I loved it. I thought it was I was a little disappointed only in the style of it, because Jean-Baptiste was very edgy at the time. I imagine like something edgier, but Prince wanted this beautiful kind of dreamlike, a little bit corny. I must say, I thought it was a little bit corny, but it was Prince. So to me, I was like, man, this guy could, he could pull off anything.
Wow. I'm so used to it now, but I can remember seeing it for the first time. I just was like, man, he's crazy. I just didn't understand, and of course, when it was for sale, you had to ask for it. It was, behind the counter.
Oh,
They
I
did-
don't remember that.
Yeah, they didn't put that out. You had to, so it was sort of a whole thing. Like you have to go ask for this.
What?
Oh yeah, yeah. They didn't put this
Oh
out.
my God, I forgot. I didn't realize
Oh,
that.
absolutely. It was behind the counter.
And you know what? Is that not the most absurd thing? You know, I
For
can't.
today, it would be, they blasted out, but yeah, back then, at 88, yeah, it was.
Oh my God, that is hilarious.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I don't wouldn't say that hurt the album, but I think because it wasn't, you couldn't just openly. Yeah,
Yeah,
even well, even the some of the ad stuff. I think it was the close up of his
it
hand.
was. I thought that was lovely, like the close up of his hand. And
Mhm,
to me, I thought that was more interesting than the whole image, really.
mhm.
But and he was cool enough to let me give me the liberty to do that.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then, I was wanted to ask you about the Love Sexy. So the Love Sexy 12 inches, at least Alphabet Street and I believe Glam Slam, weren't they like those clear plastic sleeves?
Yes.
Where did that idea come from?
That would that must have been that must have been Prince because the other thing about this packaging, I don't think there was really no other photos that were done. Like every photo with the
Mm,
photos that Jean Baptiste took, I think the only photo Prince wanted to use was for this photo uh, illustration thing. We didn't use any other. I never saw the photo session.
I think you're right on all the stuff that came out album wise. Yeah, I don't think there were any other pictures. Now there was those pictures end up being in the tour book and some other things, but yeah, you're
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
those
I don't. So I think maybe the clear sleeves were a cool way. Like we didn't have photos, and so just to make it to keep it interesting and to keep it on the Prince unique line.
Mhm.
I'm not sure who thought of that, but it was very cool. I think they did it for two of them, two sets.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, the 12 inches are naked too." That's how I thought. Like, they don't have anything on.
That's true. That's good. Oh, that's funny. That's good. Yeah. So
And then go ahead.
here is all these lyrics. See the eyeballs?
You're right. Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Those are all where it says I. Those are all those eyeballs. And then the type, once again, I went back to Margot Chase.
Okay.
She did all the song titles. The actual credits are that's all typeset, but she came up with the beautiful song titles.
So you did an outstanding job. Those are imprinted in my mind, just that style. Again, this is another one that you can look up the Love Sexy font and
Really? Oh
copy it.
man, that's so cool. That is so cool.
I love this here. So I'm assuming this was Prince giving you the
Yeah,
song list of the,
yeah.
it almost
And
it
that's
felt
his
like
writing.
his
That's
writing. Yeah, I was like, it seemed like that was been copied. I feel like I've seen, well, maybe I've just seen his writing before, but the word glam slam and the way it's positioned, I feel like I've seen it printed that way in something. I don't, and
really that was that's his writing, and it came straight from management.
mm.
Yeah.
And did you create the arrow thing?
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
know he was wearing like the heart. He would wear the heart mirror kind of thing, and he had the arrow. Was that
Yeah.
sort of an aesthetic thing that he kind of passed down to say, I want this? Or?
Well, I just took whatever existed, and so I was honing in on whatever visual cues he had, and the arrow was one of them, so I ran with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. See, this is looks like you went to one of the concerts.
Yep. Oh yeah. That was so much fun. Oh my God, that was 88. Whoo!
Yeah.
That was my last cover.
Wow.
Yeah.
A couple of these other ones here. Is this you here in the photo down there?
Yeah. Yep. That's me.
Wow.
I was standing in for lighting.
Oh, wow. Was Prince present during this
He was
photography
not at
session?
that photo session, no. But that was, he put me in charge of Sheila E. And I was honored that he just let me do it, and I art directed it, and did the whole 9 yards.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were almost like they were movies. Well, I guess it kind of, Sheila E. in The Glamorous Life, Sheila
Right.
E. in Romance 1600. Uh,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
and it's so funny. I've seen this album cover for the first album. I never noticed there was a guy
Well,
in the
you know
door.
what's funny? You know what's funny, Michael? That guy was a friend of mine. Bless his heart, he has passed, but he
Uh,
was trying to be an actor. And so I was like, "Hey, Pete, you want to come and like be an extra and you make $500 just to lay around in a hallway all day?" So that was a good friend of mine, Peter Drain.
Peter Drain.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh man.
so I love these right here. I love like I said, that yellow,
Oh.
that logo, the Madhouse logo. Who created that again?
Okay. All right. Shout out to Glenn Parsons again.
And Parsons. Incredible.
I know. I'm telling. He nailed it.
Wow. And was this talk to us? Did Prince or the management give you these pictures and explain what this was going to be, or like
This is a great. I don't know how much more time you have. I'll try to make it brief.
about 10 minutes?
Okay, this is a great story because when okay, so I was told that Prince had a model. Obviously he had picked the model.
Mancina.
Yeah. What's your first name?
Mancina.
Mancina. Yeah. So he had this model and he wanted to do a shot on the beach of this model. Like I'd not met her. I did not know what she looked like. And the thought of shooting on the beach was kind of a nightmare because of the sand, the lighting's not that good. If you're not there at sunset, like high, it's bad lighting. And I thought, oh my God, I just thought this would be so much better to create the beach indoor as like a Technicolor. When color first came out, it was called Technicolor. And it was real saturated, like the Wizard of Oz. I don't know if who'll ever forget when that came into color from black and white. It was brilliant. And I wanted to create like that Technicolor thing. So I wanted to suggest doing it indoor. And let's bring the beach indoor. We'll do this beautiful set. So I remember it was one of the few times that I talked to him on the phone about a cover. And I'm like, I was like, Prince, at that point I was able to again feel my chops. And I said, look, I think it would be so much cooler just visually to bring the beach inside. Like create a set. You could control the light and make it look like Technicolor. And he was very silent because he was all set. And he goes, okay, let's do it both ways. And I was like, oh my God, so I have to do the beach and the inside. I was trying to get out of the beach, like for real. So he's like, do it both ways. And so I had to do the whole photo session at the beach. And it was, I wish I had a Polaroid from that.
Oh, I wish you did.
Oh, do I wish. And then, of course, when we did it indoor, there was no comparison. It was much better. But he needed to see it, and I had to do it both ways. It's a really, and then, of course, the photographer was brilliant because this guy not only came, his lighting, the way he lit this, he was also like a stylist. So he came up with her. He actually had got that outfit together, and wow. I was blown away by that. I thought it was perfect.
Now that you say the whole Technicolor thing, I see it now. Yeah, because those color, that red of the hat,
yeah,
the way that blue, yeah, Wizard of Oz all day.
The backdrop being like you could control everything, and he was so good at that with that lighting. I like look at the highlights on the sand.
Yeah.
He just nailed it. I was so happy with it.
Whose idea was the yellow?
That was me.
Wow.
Because it's funny when you're designing, it's like, oh, if this bleeds, the full bleed, like typical bleed off the edge. I'm like, this just needs a pop. This needs a little bit more to it. And that's why I thought I'm gonna put it in a frame, a small border, and just canary yellow, just to add that extra punch.
How are you? I'm sure you've seen the parents just don't understand Will Smith video, and they have that picture in the backdrop.
Oh, is that? That is so
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
I gotta watch that.
Yeah, that's classic. It's a classic Will Smith, Fresh Prince video. But they have a whole bunch of posters and different pictures on his wall in the video, and that's the one that jumps out because it was like, man, they got Madhouse. Like, that's when he was kind of like, oh wow, people was kind of up on this because it always felt like this was like a secret in the know type of release. You didn't, his name wasn't on it or anything. But
yeah, exactly. Oh,
yeah.
That's so funny.
Awesome. And then of course you did was 16.
16 is next. Yeah.
It's after that. And it kind of had that gangster kind of thing.
Bonnie and Clyde, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's rob a bank. Let's rob a bank. I remember. Do I have that in the next frame? I might. Let's see.
That's
that's the back cover. Wonderful stuff.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, here we go. And I remember originally she had a trench coat on, and
really?
he was recording a couple blocks away when I was doing this photo session. And I remember sending him a Polaroid of her, like the trench coat was so cool, like real tight at the waist and like, an oversized. And I remember he got it and he's like, oh, it's hiding too much. It's just hiding too much. So eventually I was like trying to show more cleavage and pulling down the trench coat, like sending that over. He's like, lose the coat.
Oh man, I wish we could see that. Love it.
I love this too. I went to the Burbank, the Warner Brothers lot. I went and looked through their backdrops. And I mean, you could imagine the size of their backdrops. It was a great experience. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh, that's perfect. That's like Bonnie and Clyde. There we go. The bank.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then there was, I don't know if it's in here, one of the 12 inch, I don't know if it was 13 or something, but it had like a blue turquoise.
Oh,
one of those, and it was a close-up picture of her, I think, holding a dog or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Again, as I don't know, was a 17-year-old boy. These were, of course, all over the room.
Of course. I love it.
We're going to end it on the family.
Okay.
For a lot of fans, for a long time, this was one of our favorite Paisley Park albums, along with Jill Jones, which you said I don't think you worked on that one.
I didn't do Jill Jones, no.
But this one here, can you briefly tell us what he gave? Would they supply these pictures? Is this Jeff Katz pictures again? Do you remember?
No, Jeff Katz did not do these.
Oh, okay.
And I believe what happened here is the photographer, who's the oh my gosh, what's the photographer's name? Oh my goodness. He was famous for this style. Okay. And I can't believe I'm having a blank, but I guess I'm showing my age. This is terrible. What? Oh, Harrell, George. Okay, thank God my memories are. George Harrell, I believe, is the photographer famous for this like old Hollywood classic, the Harrell look. He was very well, and Prince loved his work. And apparently he had the cover photographed by this big cat. He was like big time. So that was done, but then he wanted the shot on the back. I don't know. The guy wasn't available or was going to be too expensive. So this other guy named, I think it's Rocky Shank, who was also very good with the style. I hired him to do the family. And so I was trying to make it look like the same photographer, and I think Rocky did a fine job. And so these are two different photographers.
I couldn't tell that. Yeah,
That's good.
yeah, I love the look. Like you said, yeah, it has that old 50s kind of aesthetic to it. I love the font that you got there up there. Man, great.
Yeah, that again, and I think that was Margot. That was definitely hand done.
All right. Woo.
Woo!
I am like of the abundance of riches and stories and stuff that you have shared with us today, Laura. Thank you so much for being. This
Oh,
is awesome. Ah,
thank you. I appreciate all of your just being a fan and noticing all this stuff. It's just been wonderful.
your art matters.
Oh my
And
God.
please know there's hundreds of us who have adored the stuff that you've done. It inspired us to do other things. We still look at it today. There are fans that will dress up uh, based off of these pictures and really recreate it. So, this is great.
Oh,
Hopefully, one day you will be in Paisley Park or something, and I have you speak and show your stuff. But
you know
we
what?
want to make sure
I'm
we get
hoping for
more
the
of
40-year anniversary Purple Rain. I'm hoping to be there.
There you go. There you
Yeah,
go. You should be there. I'm sure
yeah.
you will. I'm
That's
sure
what
you
we're
will.
working on it. We're working on it.
All right. Well,
Oh,
Laura, thank you so much. Is there anywhere, if I don't know, if people can they find you online, or do you have a
well,
website?
you could always Google. You'll get like interviews I've done, but I'm working on a website because I want to get out there on the road and do like talks at colleges, that sort of thing. That's what I'm working on.
Perfect, perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please in the comments show some love. Let's appreciate everything that she's done. And y'all know what I'm going to say. Work it like a job. We'll see you next time. Peace.